All right, here we are with Action Toon Bros, episode 74. Hell yeah. This is your host for the evening, Matthew Lewis, and my co-host.
Ben Sturgeon. Here for, you said 74 episodes, huh?
74, yep. It's been about 5 years, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And of
Yeah.
course, episode 74 of all things had to be a really monumental one.
Yeah, we're coming to the finale of a series we originally started with 73 episodes ago.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's right. This was the absolute first one. I remember you going over to me and being like, "All right, Ben, I want to do this podcast, right?" I'm like, "Okay, what's it about?" We pretty much review cartoons. I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
what do we want to start with?" Holds up Young Justice, which I think at the time had 2 seasons.
I believe the third one was just being announced possibly around that time, because we did cover 3, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
During that time period we covered 3. I think before we didn't do a gap before doing 3.
Right. But still, either way, and then now 5 years later, we are coming full circle and finishing the most recent season, which a fifth one I don't think has been announced yet. But
Nothing
we are
yet,
actually
nope.
we are finishing the series 5 years later. Boy, am I old.
Yeah, but that means the podcast is old too. It's a long ass run for us. But yeah, this is the current series finale, which I think we said last time during season 3. A great show, but we'll cover more personal feelings about everything that's happened in the series so far at the end of the arc. There's also besides the normal between episode bit, there's something else I wanted to do about leading up to our next series that we're going to do, but I'll cover that when we cover it. Are you ready to get into the actual first episode of this batch, the last arc of this series?
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude. I have been ready for this for a while. Because back in 2022, when these were airing, it's like I've been waiting so long for us to do this. I'm surprised it took you this long to actually get to it. But then again, you've always blown my expectations on what comes next. So
yeah, I was gonna say, I think when we first started, I think you watched the series this season actually before I did, because I was holding off for whenever we were going to start this, but we ended up waiting way longer. But yeah, I think you watched it right away, and that was the first time you were ahead of me on this show. So
yeah. Well, anyway, like you said, we should probably get started because we have a lot of ground to cover.
Oh yeah. All right, so now we're gonna start discussing Young Justice season 4, episode 22. Rescue and Search. It begins with recapping the events of Lor Zod and Ma'alafa'ak threatening Saturn Girl after busting into the ship, named ship of course. Wally tries to speed and grab some power inhibiting collars, but of course Lor Zod being a Kryptonian, he can just somewhat keep up with him and just shoots eye lasers and knocks him the hell out. Ma'alafa'ak then beats up Chameleon Boy, who tries to turn into a big monster, but then Ma'alafa'ak just turns into the same monster and actually just defeats him, making Chameleon Boy look like a fool. And Ship then threatens to shoot Lor Zod, but of course Lor Zod knows that this is some apocalyptic tech, and it's just like, hey, Ship, if you try to hurt me, I'm going to kill this Saturn girl, so you do what I say and you take us out of here. And that's when we hit the intro.
Yep. And then, after the intro, we go to El Paso, where we see Haley International Traveling Circus as the ringleader, Jack. Is it Haley or is it Hallie?
I always
forget that. Yeah, okay.
It's
Jack Haley is like, all right, we have a wonderful act for you tonight because we have the original, the one and only Daring Dan Danger. And of course, he's narrating. They have this whole trapeze act with the whole motif about being in outer space and everything. And everyone's happy. Everyone loves it. Everything is good. As our boy always does. After in the backstage, after Dick Grayson's getting ready to take off the costume and everything, Zatanna's like, "Hey, that was a good act." And Dick's like, "Hey, you want to join us? We could use that." And Zatanna's like, "No, but actually, I don't need Dan Danger. I kind of need a detective right now."
Yeah. This is when we cut to Zod and gang in the Phantom Zone talking to Connor. And it says, hey, why aren't you... You weren't affected by the Phantom Zone pulling you back, so you weren't a prisoner. How did... When they got their portal out destroyed, when Laura was trying to rescue them, they figure out that Connor... Like, okay, Connor, what's your actual, like, name? Like, I'm Connor Luthor. He's like, I'm not familiar with the Luthor. What's their symbol? And then he draws the symbol of L, the weird S symbol. And they're like, oh, you see Ursa and Zod could be like, oh boy, what are these assholes? Then we cut to Bloodhaven. I think it's the first time we see Bloodhaven in the series.
Yeah, well, no. Bloodhaven has been in a few times. Well,
okay, it's where it's usually where Nightwing works out of. So
yeah, in Bloodhaven at the warehouse, Dick and Zatanna are talking, and Dick's like, okay, hold on. You're telling me that Connor's still alive, right? And you expect me to believe that? And Zatanna's like, look, please, I'm gonna try. I know it's a lot to take in, but 24 hours. 24 hours is all I'm asking. If you don't believe within that by then, we can just put this to rest and everything. Here, let me show you. And she shares a vision of, Connor being like, help me in the Phantom Zone. And Dick's like, that's not a lot to go off of. You know that, right? Zatanna's like, but... And Dick's like, all right, 24 hours, let's go.
She also goes over how the big group of magic people trying to release him from the like the afterlife, trying to like contact him, and that also didn't work, meaning that he's probably not dead.
Right? Yeah, because that whole thing. I think it was a few episodes back, but anyway.
Yeah.
So they cut to like a montage of like Zatanna and Dick behind the computer. Dick just trying to go through some things, trying to find Kid Flash, realizes he's missing, wonders who the two other people are, because when he scans for identification for all three of them, Kid Flash was recognized. But the other two, who were disguised Saturn Girl and Chameleon Boy, they're like, we don't recognize this. So, he starts going through and everything, and so he's just like, all right, what about these two strangers that we know? And all of a sudden, they just see a picture. We don't see what the picture is, but they're like, huh, well, I think we're going to have a talk.
Yeah, we also get a quick mention of Oracle will be better at this computer stuff when they're watching the footage of Kid Flash stealing all this.
Oh, yeah, like the whole hacking and everything like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we get an Oracle name drop. But after they see whatever this picture is, we got to Metropolis.
They go to, back to Bibbo's diner once again. Clark there again, and of course, this is when he cuts back to Zod. He deduces that Connor is related to the L's, and that they question how long they've been trapped here, since they don't recognize this boy, and they only know about his baby. They know about Jor-El's baby son. It's like, is that who this is? And then Connor's like, nope, you guys have been trapped here. Krypton was destroyed 40 years ago. And you're like, what the hell are you talking about? And they first realize what's going on.
And then, of course, back at Bibbo's, Clark and Dick and Zatanna, Clark's like, all right, what do you want to talk about? We can't really talk about things here. And Zatanna's like, I have a glamour, don't worry. People are going to think we're talking about the, the Knights versus... whatever, a football game, baseball game, whatever. And so, they show a picture of Clark talking to, both Saturn Girl and Chameleon Boy in the diner when they first met. Because apparently after everything that happened, Bibbo was just like, hey, I'm putting cameras in here. So...
Yeah, after he was jumped during the Krillitaean stuff from previous season.
Yeah, right. And of course, Clark is just like, okay, look, I don't know that if there's I don't sense any foul play here. And of course, Dick's like, okay, but what can you tell us about these guys? I mean, obviously, with everything that's happened, that's transpired, it's kind of hard to think that these two are not part of, actually doing something to doing anything about all this. And Clark's like, look, I can't tell you anything, however, I can tell you that you need to trust me on this, please.
Yeah, they are trustworthy.
And of course, they go back to the warehouse like, what the? This is bullshit. What's going on? Like, why can't? And of course, like it's like, okay, so they were at the convenience store getting snacks and stuff. Wait, what if they were like preparing for a mission? If that's the case, then we cut over to the watchtower.
Yep. We see Tigress telling them about the inhibitor collars they took, some rations and equipment for the journey. And then she says, okay, whatever you guys are investigating, I want in on this. And they say, all right. They show her the footage of the Legionnaires hiding and everything. And they say, okay, well, this is weird. And they say, okay, there's two weird people and him there. They also learn about the time traveling and the a time traveling Kryptonian on the New Genesis mission. And so they decide that they also need to get Rocket, who was also on that mission.
Which, funny enough, that's when we cut to Dakota City, where, at Rocket's apartment, they all talk about this. And Rocket, just like literally everyone else except for Zatanna, is like, this sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
But also,
she
also mentions that the Phantom Zone projector got like destroyed as well, and Zatanna's like, here, let me like look in your mind, okay? And when she does, we see like when the Phantom Zone projector was getting destroyed, we see like a very brief glimpse of like the Phantom Zone, and then of course Zatanna also makes the connection to, oh yeah, this that's the same thing. So that is the Phantom Zone. And I'll let you take this one because Dick going on this whole like long list of like conspiracy thing kind of hurt my head a little bit, even if it made sense.
I was saying, yeah, the main points were that they besides learning about the ship attack and the glimpse of the Phantom Zone, they deduced where Connor is likely the Phantom Zone. And they think that, okay, well, with all the shit we've found so far, I think that also means that Wally is also on the trail of this with these two mysterious people that Clark trusts. And that's pretty much like what the wrap up of like their like detective mission that they're on, this team, which I eventually start just referring to as the Young Justice team, because this is pretty much like most of the main original crew from the first season.
It's like they're bringing them back.
Yeah, finally for the final season, perfect. Zod learns of Krypton's fate. They didn't listen to Jor-El's warnings, and the planet was destroyed. And they also learned that Clark was sent to Earth under the Yellow Sun, where he would be more powerful. Zod and Ursa then say, we need to talk and discuss what the hell's going on, because this is all way too much to take in. Back on ship.
Hold on. Because after they leave, Phantom Girl actually wakes up and is like, hey.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, Phantom Girl awakes and warns Connor, hey, man, you can't trust these two psychos.
Yeah.
And yeah,
so she's finally awake now. Then we go to Poseidonus, where, Nightwing and Rocket and everyone Rocket and Nightwing in one of the bubbles. They meet with the now Aquaman, but it was Aqualad.
He's been Aquaman for like 2 seasons now. You just call him Aquaman. I said Cal because there's multiple Aquaman right now. There's 3 technically, right?
It's true, yeah. So yeah, Kaldor is just like, hey, so what's going on? So, and they talk about how Kaldor took the sabbatical. They like the new look, and Dick's like, all right, need your help. Need you to take a look at something. Trust me, because Kaldor's like, I've finally grieved enough about Connor, and Dick's like, so funny story
about that.
And then they cut back to the warehouse where Kaldor is looking at the literal corkboard conspiracy theory, like red rope and everything, and he's just like,
string mystery.
He looks at this for a while, turns over and says, all right, what do I need to do?
Hell yeah. And they say that they need him as a 5th anchor to open the Phantom Zone for this plot that they have. And their plan is to call Clarion, since he's been there and he's able to access it easily.
Because let's be honest, nothing goes wrong when you call Clarion.
Yeah, Lord of Chaos, what could possibly happen?
Right, yeah. And even Zatanna at the Tower of Fate, she's like, don't worry. Naboo is off doing something, and so we can use this. And Clarion hates the Tower of Fate, so everything will go off smoothly. they all become the anchors. They cast the spell. Clarion appears. Is like, what do you guys want? And Zatanna's like, you owe me a debt, and I'm coming to collect. And Clarion's like, oh yeah, watch this. Gets out of his little realm, stands
Yep.
in the Tower of Fate, and is like, look, you thought I was gonna be afraid to come in here again? Nah. In fact, I want to beat the shit out of you guys.
Yeah, he just begins to make multiple copies of himself. He copies their powers with his similar abilities, and literally just like counters all their things and just keeps beating the shit out of them. It's a very fun little fight sequence of the team, proving that they're up against something way too powerful.
Yep, of course, yeah. So,
But as they're doing that, then
yeah.
they're all getting beaten. Zatanna does then do an actual strong spell that stops Clarion for a moment and forces him to like listen to her for a bit. He tells them that, fine, I'll honor my debt. My debt that I'm going to honor is I'm not going to kill you all right now. And so he just dips out and says, bye, losers.
Yeah, right. Like she literally is like, hey, all of the Lords of Order are saying you need to pay your debt. And of course, Clarion's like, do I have to? Tico meows. Damn it. And then, of course, he leaves in usual Clarion way. While absolutely nothing got done, got taken care of, except for as Clarion's leaving, they mentioned the school bus, and that's it. That's whatever. Meanwhile, in Supertown,
Yeah. On ship, we see Saturn Girl kind of like half gloating, half expositioning about all the things that have happened so far with their crazy ass plot, because the plot with the Legionnaires and Lorzad has been absolutely insane so far. Like, I barely keep up with it, but she explains like, so you went to in the future when you were released, you grew up on the distant planet, and then you released them, and your father tried to take over the planet, but you destroyed the Legionnaires. You went back in time, did this. You went back in time, did that. But you still can't even beat us. And then Lorzad's like, all right, shut up. We need to learn what the Kaiser Thrall is.
Meanwhile,
where'd you put it?
Yeah. Meanwhile,
like, says,
Light Ray flies up and goes into the bioship, who was actually Ma'alafahak in disguise.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, cool. I learned where the Kaiser Thrall is. It's being held in Oa.
Yeah. Like, oh god.
And the bioship shuts down to be like, nope, okay, we're done, good. And of course, Lore's like, remember, they're still in my control. They're still able to die. And so bioship's like, fine. And of course,
and Wally's also forced to help. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then Lore's like, all right. Looks at Kid Flash and is like, all right, I'm turning off your inhibitor collar. Use the treadmill. Make us go faster. And he does after shocking him a little bit, like, oops. And then so Kid Flash uses the cosmic treadmill again, and they just keep going, and they're heading off to Oa now. Meanwhile, at the Tower of Fate,
with the Young Justice team, they're like, Dick's like, okay, so with Clarion failed, there's no plan B. We're back at square one. And Zatanna says, well, no, we have one more option. Let's find that magic school bus. Then the credits start, and we see the post-credit scene is Forager and the Green Lantern on Oa trying to figure out what's going on with the Kaiser Thrall, and they find out that it is actually a metahuman, and it's only 11 years old.
Yep, an 11-year-old human metahuman boy just inside this, and it's trying to communicate, and that is where this episode ends.
Yep, the first one, the one I wanted to discuss was, I like that this one was just a straight up mystery, like a typical Gotham Bat family mystery for the most part for their side of it.
Right, that was good.
You don't really get that much, which is nice. Yeah, I was gonna say, have you watched or read or played any recent mystery games or watched any mystery shows or anything like that?
Not really, not recently at least.
Okay. I was saying I've been recently following a bunch of podcasts with creepypasta stuff. And there's a bunch of really good mystery ones, like Brassica, which was turned into a actual audiobook podcast, which is very fun. It's about this weird creepy town. And then another one was the Left Right game, which is kind of like a weird, surreal Welcome to Nightville, surreal journey across the country. Both very, very good. But another show, have you watched the Jack Reacher show on Amazon?
No, it didn't look like my speed.
Okay. It's actually really, really good, and the main dude, Alan Richardson, I've been a huge fan of since Blue Mountain State, where he's an incredibly funny comedic actor. But also he played, what is it? Hawk and Falcon? Who are the two? The blue and red outfitted DC superheroes?
Dove and Hawk, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, Dove and Hawk.
I think it's Dove and Hawk.
Okay, yeah, he played the one Hawk in the Titans TV show, but like the basic premise of of Reacher is like they keep calling it's just like buff Sherlock Holmes, where he's just like this huge like 6'4" giant muscle man, but he's like the smartest person in the world. And he can like solve any mystery, and but he usually just like ends up beating the shit out of people. It's a pretty good mystery show. It's actually pretty fantastic. I definitely huge recommend on that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was this episode is actually dedicated to Ed Asner, which is very sad. Huge actor and voice actor. Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say, Ed Asner, the name sounds familiar to me. What were some
you
of
may
his
recognize
roles?
him. In this show, he played the original host of Naboo, but also you might know him as the old man from Up. I personally am a huge fan of his Granny Goodness from the original Superman TAS.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was the main character in Up. And wait, he was also Granny Goodness in the original TSA
TAS, yeah, original Superman. He was the Granny Goodness voice. He was fantastic. He was hilarious. Roland Daggett from Batman TAS, you might recognize him as. And another very, very funny role in Freakazoid. He was like he was Officer Cosgrove. He was
Cosgrove. You're right, he was.
Yeah. He passed away when this episode aired. I've been a huge fan of his for years. Yeah, he's a huge amount of DC work and cartoon work, but also, like I said, he's been a prolific actor in movies for like decades. He was a huge actor. I was very sad to see him go.
Yeah, that is sad.
Yeah, but the other bit I wanted to do for the bit between podcasting, I'm going to cover series that we're not going to do following this series finale for this, but also for the next series we're going to cover, because there's a lot of shows and a lot of different ones I wanted to do, but they're like various groups of things and the reasons why I'm not going to do them. Or I was going to have you take a guess at what you think I might do, Ben. Did you want to have me tell you what series we're not going to do, or do you want to take a guess?
I mean, why not both, I say, because, you can talk about the ones that we're not going to do because of reasons, but I could also take, like, I've already got at the very least 2 guesses as to what you're gonna want us to do, but right, I'm not gonna say that yet.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I'm gonna tell. Well, I don't want to. Yeah, I want you to give me one of your guesses, or just like a completely out there thing that you think I might choose to do.
All right. Well, the first one that I have an inclination of what we're gonna do is Invincible, because you have literally every single time. Once at least, every single time we get to a series finale or something like that, or during at least one of the episodes in each series, you have been telling me over and over, you're like, we have to do Invincible. We have to do Invincible. So that's at least one of my 2 guesses, at least.
All right. Well, with that guess, I'm going to tell you that the series we are covering next is not a superhero series. And the reason for that is that we are currently covering a superhero series. We've done several in the past. There's several more I would like to do. But among the ones we are not going to do, Invincible for the time being. We're also not going to do the Harley Quinn show, which is fucking fantastic. Everyone should check it out. Or the spin-off show, Kite Man, hell yeah. The other thing I did not want to do, we're not going to do any X-Men series, which was very high up on my list for a while now. I really wanted to do either Evolution or X-Men 97.
Which are both really good choices, mind you.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, Ed wanted to join, like Chris did in the past, for if we did Evolution, because he and me would talk about that show for like hours and hours and hours in school back in the day. And 97, I hear absolutely fantastic things about. I've not watched it at all yet, but it is on the list of things I would like to watch. But yeah, we are not covering a superhero show next. So all those shows I listed are off the board for our next series.
Well, that's good. That does mean that it is viable for my second for sure guess to still be a thing. Well, but
we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get to that a little later. Was there anything else you wanted to do in between episodes, or do you just want to go straight into it?
No, we can go to the next episode. If there's no mysteries to discuss, we discussed Ed Asner and the first tier of what we're not going to cover next. So yeah, let's get to episode 23 of season 4, Ego and
and
super
super ego.
ego. And you know what? This episode starts off with me real excited.
Yeah, because it goes, we are in Markovberg, where a young metahuman is running from pretty much the Markovian version of rednecks.
Yeah, some
Because they're
weird
like,
hate group.
yeah, apparently driven by a very important name, which we'll get to when we get to that part. But they want to kill. They're like, oh yeah, well, sorry, you're a metahuman. We don't actually like metahumans. We're gonna kill you, kind of thing. And this weird this metahuman child who is like a lizard kind of boy, actually like spits some kind of weird like some kind of like weird thing on
Paralytic
the guy's
acid.
face, and
Yeah.
then like uses his tongue to puncture his arm and making him paralyzed. And so as these weird guys are like gonna kill this kid, we get to see Geoforce and his
Excuse me?
Infinitors.
What did you call him?
I call him Geoforce.
No, his name is Hot Lava.
Oh, you know what? I stand absolutely corrected. The King of Markovia, whichever you want to call him. He appears with his
No, I said Hot Lava.
he appears and is like, Infinitors attack. And we get to see a whole group of people. Like we see this really Amazonian looking woman with like a golden arm that looks like a claw. Mm-hmm. We see like a really tiny man. We see someone who might be a speedster of some sort.
Yeah.
And they beat the crap out of him. The one like the leader of this whole group of like redneck guys starts running away, and then immediately as Brion is chasing after this guy, we see like this other guy in an Infinitor outfit who's like kind of bald, known as Everyman. And Brion's like, wait, didn't you see anyone? And he's like, nah, man, I'm the only one here. And
escaped.
Yeah, and then of course, yeah, he must have escaped. And of course, behind his back, we see him transforming into Everyman. So it's just like I'm sitting here like, oh, there's some cahootinizing. And of course Brion's upset, and it's just like, I think that's where the title card happens, right?
Yep, this is we get the intro. Then we cut back to a college in Ivytown. We see Harper and Violet are moving into the dorms. Violet seems a bit like... Or no, Harper seems a bit jealous of Violet moving, or kind of upset about Violet moving into this new facility. And then this is when Harper finally kind of explains that since Brion's out of the picture and Violet's been single for this whole time, that for a long time she's really had feelings for them. And like they're both, since way back when, during the first season when Harper made a move on Violet, that like she's been waiting to find out what their feelings are. And she doesn't really get an answer from Violet, and she kind of just like is about to head off. But then we cut back to Markovia.
Yep, where there's like actual police force over there, and Hot Lava Geoforce King Brion is walking out with the big lady who is actually known as Fury, and Everyman, and of course Brion's like, I really don't like that Wilhelm Vettings, who is the guy they were chasing, actually got away. I don't like that he got away, and how he got past Everyman, I don't know. And of course, as he's being upset about this, frickin' what's his name?
I never refer to him as the ambassador because his name is like impronounceable to me.
Yeah. The ambassador walks in and is like, "Hey, look, you need to go over here and comfort the child, and you need to make a good impression." And of course, Brion's like, "Don't worry, you're safe here in Markovia because we welcome all metas here." Then we cut to the Phantom Zone.
Yeah. In the Phantom Zone, Phantom Girl explains her powers and the planet she's from and her history to Connor. And that there are weird multi-dimensional physics going on right now, but he completely just doesn't understand a single word of it. Connor refuses to leave because he does not want to betray Zod, who he's made an oath to.
Yep.
This is when we cut back to the Young Justice gang. The OG gang, back together, are at the junkyard where they found the bus has been compacted.
Yes. And after that happens, it's pretty much a short scene, because we go back to Markovberg. There's a lot of that going on in this episode, which
I appreciate, honestly.
I kind of do too. And of course at the Royal Palace, Brion is like, "Yay, I know you, child. From Cuba, when I was part of the Outsiders. Your name's Johnny, right?" And the lizard boy looks and says, "Lizard Johnny, actually, is my name." And Brion's like, "Ah, okay. Well, just so you know, we are going to protect you. I am not backing down, because it is true. We want to welcome metahumans here in my country." And of course, he's just like, I mean, is that kind of like what you did with your uncle? And he kind of backs off, like, wait, no, it's all over the news and everything. And I kind of don't want to fight. And, Brion kind of sighs and like, "You're right. You shouldn't have to fight. You shouldn't have to fight. That's why." And then immediately, the minister as well as the ambassador walk in, and the minister's like, "Hey, so your latest policy on metahumans is kind of a little weird, and I wanted to talk about that." And as he's doing that, the ambassador like pulls Johnny to the side, and he's like, "Wow, that must have been really traumatic." Kind of like when Brion had to do something very traumatic, like kill his uncle for the good of the country. You must be very upset, just like Brion was. And Johnny, being a very impressionable child, is like, "Yeah, you're right. I am kind of upset that everything happened. I didn't know that that King Brion had to do that kind of thing." And of course, he's like, "Yeah, I agree with everything you said." And as the ambassador's like, like secretly like, yes, a Fury like looks at this and is like not very pleased with this. Meanwhile, with the minister is like, "So are you sure, like, this whole thing is a good idea? I mean, metapositive people, if you're like going to be like trying to gather for the Markovian ambassador, people might think that this is an open mission to like go to Taos and like literally steal from the Justice League." And Brion's like, "Look, this can be a problem, but I mean," and then the ambassador walks in and goes, "Wow, relax, guys. Everything is going according to plan. Now, minister, if you could come over here with me." And Brion's looking around and is like, "Wait, where'd Johnny go?"
Where'd Lizard Johnny go? This is when we cut to a scene of Black Canary holding a therapy session. We see a bunch of characters who have all had traumatic events happen in the previous season, including Violet. We see Livewire and who was the girl she was with? Mist. Whirlwind's there.
Yeah,
Cyborg.
There.
Gar.
Tara's there, actually.
Yeah, Tara's there talking as well. Violet opens up about Harper confessing her feelings for them. Tara's kind of like, "Yeah, no shit, she's been had a crush on you since Brion was around." And also, "My brother is completely gone. He's crazy. You really need to get over him. He's not worth, because he's completely gone unless you want to try to rekindle things somehow." And Cyborg's like, "Yeah, man, you shouldn't give up just yet." And Black Canary's like, hey, we're not here to give advice. We're just here to listen to each other.
And of course,
Cyborg,
Vic, Cyborg like talks about a certain thing in his past, because one of the things he advised Violet do was like get closure with Brion, but they're not allowed to give advice, so he just retells something about him reconnecting with his dad and how well it went for him.
Yeah, the main plot line that Cyborg always has in all media is that his dad's responsible for his state and their, contentious relationship there. But back in Markovia,
Lizard Johnny is watching a promotional film thanks to a name we haven't heard in a long time, Helga
oh yeah,
Jace, talking
yeah, Dr.
about how,
Jace.
yep, Dr. Jace, speaking about, like, this is a safe, the center is a safe environment for everyone. And if no one has the metahuman gene activated, they can volunteer for the TR 2.0 injection. It is 95% safe, and those who get their meta gene activated could join it's propaganda. It's just really heavy propaganda about, you could join the Infinity Cadets and be your own Infinitor. And Johnny,
Mm-hmm.
being an impressionable young child, is like, oh my god, I want to do this. And of course, Brion and Fury find this child, and the child's like, yeah, I want to do it. I want to be a cadet so I can be an Infinitor. And of course, Dr. Jace comes out and goes, yep, after all, they're leading by your example, and takes the kid away. And of course, Brion's just like, oh, yay, wonderful. Looks at Fury and is like, I'm kind of concerned about this. I kind of don't like where this is going, kind of thing. If he wanted to be,
weird.
if he wanted to be a hero, he could have joined, the League or the Outsiders while he was at Taos. But like, why? And then of course the Ambassador appears conveniently and is like, hey, wonderful to see all of you. Fury, Trajectory, which is the weird speedster lady, and Everyman are going on a mission. I want you to join them. However, because the king and I have a lot to talk about, and Fury like looks immediately at Brion and is like, is that what you want? Kind of hinting at, she knows something he doesn't want to, but kind of thing. And of course, Brion's like, yeah, we have to do it. And she kind of rolls her eyes and walks away.
Yeah.
Back in the Phantom Zone.
Yeah, we get a real quick scene of Phantom Girl just giving full exposition on Zod. He's a Kryptonian criminal. They were sent here as punishment, but we need to get out of here. We need to hook back up with my people and your Young Justice team. She's like, come on, we gotta go. And as Zod and Ursa come back from their discussion, like, they're like, okay, well, we should, get out of here. We should figure out what we're going to do next. And then Collie's like, hey, this Ghostie's alive. And then she's just like, oh my God, you idiots.
Back
the beginning of a very annoying trend for...
Yeah, right. That seems to be a thing. But back in Markovberg, Fury joins Trajectory and Everyman outside of a house. They ring the doorbell, and you find out it's Minister Mueller. And, he's like, oh, it's kind of late. What's up? And, because he made a few comments about this whole meta policy thing. And long and short of it, Trajectory is like, well, I mean, can you be trusted with anything here? Everyman, like, tries to transform and, like, threaten the man. Because, they're all non-metas. And, they might be safer in Vladiva or anything like that. And to Fury's, dismay, Everyman really like transforming into this huge beast and like, what if I got to meet your family? And Fury like backs it, like is like, get back, you idiot, kind of thing. And Trajectory is just like food for thought, leaves, and Everyman's like, dude, what the heck? That was an awesome twist. They probably believed it more than ever. The guy probably thought you saved his life. And then at the junkyard.
Yeah. The Young Justice Gang are going to try to fix the bus. Zatanna summons the Trogologs from the beginning to the teaching lesson she had with the magic students in the previous season. She promises them that they can have Dick's car if they agree to repair the bus for them. While that's being deciphered out, we cut back to the therapy group where we see Violet has texts from Brion.
No. Violet texted Brion can we talk? And there was no
Yeah.
response.
Yeah, no response yet. Beast Boy goes on about his corgi wingman, who was the name of the one of the first animal sidekicks. Beast Boy then talks about how he has been doing better recently, but he still has some progress to make before he's back on the team. He's figures everything out with Princess Perdita and all that kind of stuff. So he's still working through his life, but he's making slow, steady progress. In the Phantom Zone, we see Connor and Ursa try to stop Phantom Girl while she tries to flee. They grab her and they say, "No, you're not getting out of here. You know a way out. You're going to rescue us." And she says, "Nope." And she says, "Fine, I'll come back for you later." She just slips out of their grasp and just leaves the Phantom Zone real easy, which is just hilarious because they've been trapped there for 40 years.
Right.
But as soon as she gets back to Mars, we realize her hand has still utterly been burned to a crisp by the lava that she tried to rescue Connor from during their how she ended up here in the first place with him.
Meanwhile, at the Markovian Palace, because yes, this is the episode where we go back from Markovia to everything else. Brion is sitting in the throne alone, looking at the text from Violet, when all of a sudden a boom tube opens, a purple one, because Halo, also known as Violet, is there. And, Brion's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm happy to see you. Like, I'm really happy that you're here." And Violet's like, "Yeah, you didn't answer your text, so I figured maybe come over here in person." And, she's concerned about, "Hey, why are you doing this alone kind of thing? You don't need to. Like, you did a whole lot of bad and like Brion's like, I had to do a lot of things. I'm king now, so I have to make sure all of this goes." And as they're talking, who do you think comes in but the ambassador, who's like, "Oh, this is her. Maybe you should, have you come to accept the proposal of the king?" And she's like, "No, I'm just here to, try to talk to him."
Violet says no, they didn't, because remember, Violet's they them pronouns.
Oh yeah, that's right. So has she come over and it's like, "No, they have not." And even Brion's like, "What? You're just gonna come over? Is that why you came over here, to fix me?" And Violet's like, "No. I'm not a mother box effect. I'm not the mother box I used to be, obsessed with fixing everything. I just really wanted to talk. I mean, see if there was anything we have now. Because I didn't want, okay, like, after everything happened and after we left, and Brion's like, "Wait, you didn't leave. I kicked you out." And Violet's just like, "Well, fine. Then I guess I'll save you the trouble." Boom tubes herself out. And as the ambassador is like, "Okay, look, I know things are tough right now." And Brion's like, "Just get out of here. Get out of here now." And of course he's like, all right. Turns around, has evil man smile. Which then cuts to a like the palace garden where Brion is like looking at, I forget what it was exactly, but it was a big statue. And Fury's like, "Hey, so everything good? I kind of need someone to confide in right now." And Brion's like, "I kind of need that too." And she's like, "Yeah, I look, before we actually like confide in each other anything, let me tell you, let me just lay out my sins in front of you. I've done some really bad things I don't like working with Lex Luthor with the control chip. Then there's the thing I just did with Trajectory, and Everyman. I'm I really don't. I'm like, I don't know. Like, no one really believes like what's going. Like, this is just a mess. And Brion's like, "Tell me about that. No, like, seriously, legitimately, talk to me about this."
Yeah, everything that's going on so far.
Yeah.
This is when we cut back to Violet calling up Harper to tell her that they figured out their feelings and that they are completely over Brion at this point, and that they're willing to give a relationship with Harper a chance. We cut then to the Troglodytes, who we finally get a reference. I've been literally referring to them as goblins in my notes since the episode, the Magic School episode. They used to be called gremlins in World War II and World War One, but they're going to repair the bus, so they actually begin, magically repairing the bus back from its uncompacted state. And once they are finished, she says, "All right, you can have Dick's car." They begin jumping all over it, breaking it, chomping on it, and then she just kind of teleports them back to their home realm with the car in tow. And then finally, we see that the Young Justice team is ready to travel to the Phantom Zone, but they say, should we contact McGann? And they say, no, we don't want to give her false hope. So let's do this bus plan. If it works, then we'll have Connor back and everything will be fine. So the gang makes a giant portal out of the doorway of the bus, and the episode ends.
And
meanwhile,
the end credits scene is on Justice Island, where the Hall of Justice, there's a model of the Hall of Justice there. Catherine Colbert with Black Lightning and Troya are like, hey, they're just talking about the plans, how the new Hall of Justice is going to be here now, which is close to the United Nations, to kind of symbolize the connection with the Justice League and the United Nations, so that they're not doing the whole, we're going to work separately thing, but we're going to work together kind of thing. And even everyone's like, yay, woo! And then they do a ribbon cutting. It's called
Justice Island, which is weird.
Justice Island, where the Hall of Justice is going to be, where the Justice League is going to be. How much justice do you need in one place, right? Anyway, and then after they do the ribbon cutting, everyone cheers, and that's the end of the episode.
Hell yeah. For this little middle bit, I wanted to talk about, well, firstly, shout out to Wingman, the little corgi, is actually just a reference to Greg Sipes' friend of the podcast's actual dog, Wingman.
Oh, that's cute.
That he has tons of pictures up on Blue Sky and formerly the other social media website that we don't use anymore. But yeah, Wingman is his actual dog. But then he mentioned some kind of hero that the dog was a sidekick to, which is very fun. I also wanted to say, yay, Brion's back.
I mean,
legit,
sort of.
I think he might be one of my favorite. No, I mean, he's back, and he just came back at all in this episode. He had an actual plot line, which is great.
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely.
Legit, from season 3, I think he might be one of my favorite characters. A, because of his abilities, but B, his story has been so fascinating to follow for this entire thing. I really, really like him a lot. So I'm happy he's finally back. Even though, spoiler alert, this storyline with Markovia, the metahumans, the Infinitors. Also, we didn't mention that the Infinitors were rescued from Lex Luthor, because remember, they were his meta team back during season 3 when they were trying to make multiple teams of metas and everything like that. Lex Luthor's team was the Infinitors. And somehow between that and now, they stopped working for Lex Luthor and they are supposedly loyal to Brion. But whatever weird thing is going on with the Infinitors, with them threatening the Minister, with the Ambassador whose name I can't pronounce, this is an interesting setup, and I love the whole idea of Markovberg with the Markovs. But unfortunately, this isn't going to go anywhere after this episode, which sucks.
Yeah, this was just minor spoilers. This is the only episode of all the episodes we're covering for the season finale, the series finale, that is about Markovia. We're not going to see anything else about it.
Yeah, no follow-up with Dr. Jace, no follow-up with Lizard Johnny, no follow-up with Fury's backstory or anybody that's going on, because once again, they set up a whole lot of really, really cool stuff, but and not much is coming of it, unfortunately.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to mention was I tried to look up more superhero ethno-states, the Markoverberg is being a state just for metahumans to escape to if they're scared or in trouble. The only ones I could come up with was the dozen that the X-Men have had in the past. Geonosia was the island that they had for a while, run by Magneto and gang, that was eventually destroyed by Sentinels. And have you seen Wolverine and Deadpool yet?
No, not yet. I do plan on it.
It's fantastic. The main villain, Cassandra Nova, destroyed Geonosia with an army of Sentinels. but she's also in that movie and she's fantastic. The other one, Asteroid M, which was Magneto's weird asteroid that was all for mutants, which features heavily in X-Men Evolution. And then, of course, my personal favorite, the recent comic arc of Krakoa, the mutant island that like houses all of them and gives them a shit ton more abilities and a shit ton more like access to all kinds of really cool stuff. If you have the time, 100%, the most strong recommend I could possibly give you, check out the X-Men Krakoa arc. It's fucking incredible. Also, it's a huge plot line if you're playing Marvel Rivals currently. The main current event of the recording of this episode is all about Krakoa with Emma Frost and Magneto and gang, and it's really, really cool. But yeah, that's just that bit. And now for round number 2 of what Matthew's not going to cover. Give me your guess, Ben.
So,
or if you want to hold off your main guess, you can try to throw out another random thing, see if that lands.
Well, the other guess I have for certain, and yes, I have been thinking about other guesses about what we're going to watch or not. The other guess that I had, because of what we did, because you said not a superhero one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, recently a Netflix series dropped that everyone has been talking about. So, are we gonna do Devil May Cry? We gonna do the anime adaptation of Devil May Cry?
With helmed by friend of the president Adi Shankar.
Something tells me the answer is no, because yes, that was a throwaway guess.
Ugh. Well, I was gonna say, yeah. What's your? I was gonna say hold off on more guesses, but if was that your guess?
That's not my actual second guess, but
all right. Well, I may just shoot your actual guess out of the water because I'll tell you that the next series we're covering is not going to be on Netflix.
Well, congratulations, you did.
Yeah, assuming you were talking about, of course, Arcane Season 2.
Yes, that was my actual next guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, I did watch Arcane Season 2. It's been a pretty controversial, divisive season for the most part. I'm still working out my feelings on the show, and I do want to do a rewatch of it just for when we cover it, but I am not going to do that next. I'm probably going to hold off on that until the next Riot series, the official Noxian project, whatever that's going to be, is going to be announced or whatever. But and also I'm not going to do Devil May Cry because not interested in the show. I've heard mixed things, bad things from fans, and like okay things from people who aren't fans.
That was my facetiousness, was because yesterday, my roommate, none of us have Netflix, mind you, but my roommate, Zem was like, yeah. I've heard mixed to bad things about Devil May Cry. I'm like, cool. That just makes me not want to watch it still.
Yeah, apparently, and people who are fans of the game series storyline, it is like apparently like comedically terrible bastardization of everything about the show, about the game series story. But people who aren't fans of that and just coming into it, as outsiders, are saying it's all right. So I'm like, all right, that's no thanks to that. But speaking of Adi Shankar, unfortunately, I'm also not doing the Netflix Castlevania Nocturne just yet. A, because I'm certain you wanted to cover that. But B, like I said, no Netflix projects coming up in the foreseeable future for a list of shows I want to do. And also, I don't know if we mentioned it on the podcast or we mentioned it off air when we were talking about stuff. We might be covering the Monster Hunter Legends of the Guild movie for a special event with friend of the podcast, Ed, and co-host of Movie Garbage. We might be doing an episode on that possibly in the future, but we'll see. But yeah, so second reveal that it is not going to be a Netflix film. Or Netflix animated series.
I have a few other guests that are less throwaways than the Devil May Cry series, but okay. So no superhero and no Netflix. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Mystery deepens. Speaking of mystery, we are starting now episode 24.
Correct.
Of season 4. Zenith.
And Abyss. We're just going to start this bad.
Oa.
Yep, we're at Oa, where Tomar 2, the weird like bird-beaked orange of the Green Lanterns, is welcomes a random visitor to the reception desk of the Galactic Science Prison. After there's he scans with the ring, like, we have to, which we see it's lore.
Yeah,
it's lore. And but he's like scanning. In the background we see the fucking Poozer himself looking over, like, like, I don't like where this is going. And he's like, in the ring's like, name unknown, no criminal record. And Tomar's just like, okay, sorry, that's just standard protocol.
It also marks him as a Daxamite.
Huh?
It marks him as a Daxamite as opposed to a Kryptonian.
Correct. Yes, he's a Daxamite. And of course, it's like, okay, so what you need? What were you asking about? And Laura's just like, oh yes, I was just curious about. I heard that the Kaiser Thrall was here, and of course, looking through the records, Tomar's like, yeah, it's actually been moved to Earth recently. And Laura's like, okay, is there anything else you can? He's like, unfortunately, no. The location is public knowledge. Everything else is classified, unfortunately. And of course, Laura's like, thank you so much. By the way, I think I might have known your dad. He was a great Green Lantern. And Tomar's like, oh, thank you, kind of thing. And then Laura leaves, and that's when we get the title card.
Oh, he also says a really shit-eating grin line of, like, I hope you follow in his footsteps.
Yeah, there's that, too.
What an asshole. And in case you forgot, listeners, he did kill Tomar in the previous episode. Meaning he's like, oh, I'll kill you too, bitch. This is when we hit that intro.
And then we start off in the Phantom Zone.
Yep, the Phantom Zone with the Young Justice Squad. They are searching for Connor as they're, learning the physics of this weird world. They explain that the Kryptonians here that they come across are tough, but also did they find out what the Phantom Zone actually is, right? In the previous episode, did we mention that they know that it's a prison for Kryptonians?
No, that has not actually. They just see the information.
They know that they're Kryptonians at this point. Yeah, it's very silly. They know that they're Kryptonians. They're not going to be superpowered, but they will be tough because they know the physics of how this world works way better than they do. As the Young Justice gang is exploring, they find Connor, and we see that he continues to have memory flashbacks as he sees the team trying to confront him. But he thinks that they are another illusion of his Phantom Zone sickness. And he begins to shake. He's like, no, you're not real. These are all more illusions.
And that's
as he's freaking out, the Kryptonians arrive, and they say, wait, you guys have found a way in here? Then you guys know a way out. You're going to help us get out of here, I swear. But this is when we cut to the Watchtower.
Back at the Watchtower, Miss Martian arrives, and, Black Lightning's like, hey, I want you to meet Green Lantern Forager, and immediately, McGann's like, oh my god, it's been so long, Forager. Cause apparently she knows this, what a Forager is.
She greets this Forager because other Forager explained everything to her about it.
Oh, right, that's right. And of course, the Forager's like, okay, so this thing right here is called the oh shit, I just blanked on the name.
Kaiser
Thrall. Thank you. But here's the thing about this Kaiser Thrall. It has a human living in it, and Black Lightning's like, hey, we kind of wanted to see if you could do a psychic connection with this, and McGann's like, yeah, okay, sure, hold on a second. So we find out that this 11-year-old metahuman child is named Danny Chase, and Danny was kidnapped. Was a child who was kidnapped, meta-activated, and trafficked to Apocalypse, where Desaad literally removed his brain and put it inside that box. Danny apparently has telekinesis and some multidimensional abilities, which apparently it's also explained that using the multidimensional abilities is slowly killing this Danny.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Danny, she's like, oh, by the way, Danny wants to talk to us in person, mind you. So we see inside the brain space, of Danny, we see like the box, and we see this child just sitting there with like a southern accent. It's just like, oh, hey, finally glad to see y'all. And Black Lightning's like, look, we're gonna do everything we can, and we're sorry that everything happened. And as they're talking, there's like a transmission coming in, and Miss Martian's like, yeah, we can accept this. Meanwhile, though, we cut back to Mars, or Maalika Andra.
Mm-hmm. Prince Jem is the one who is calling them, and he tells her that we have this weird girl who popped up, and she's saying that Connor's alive and trapped in the Phantom Zone. This is when we cut to the actual Phantom Zone, where Connor continues to have flashes of his early days, a bunch of footage from the first season of Young Justice, because this is pretty much the entire team of the first season. But as he's freaking out, Zod asks him to help. He's like, hey, Superboy, help us, capture these people. They know how to get out of here, and they're going to release us all. Are you guys ready? As Superboy agrees to help them, because he's a hindrance this whole season, Zod and the Kryptonians, along with Connor, begin to prepare to fight the Young Justice team. Cal tries to explain, like, Connor, what the hell are you talking about? You're a good guy. We need to get back to Earth. He's like, no, I killed Superman. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? Connor, you are insane.
Meanwhile, back at the Watchtower, Superman actually walks in and says, all right, what's going on here? And all right, I'm here. And of course they're getting ready to do a boom tube, a Zeta tube from Mars to here, where Prince Jem and Phantom Girl like walk through. And of course Prince Jem is like, hey, this is Phantom Girl. I'm just gonna let you know that she hasn't fully opened her mind to me, but everything she says, I have it in my best knowledge that she's absolutely telling the truth. So Phantom Girl explains how she and some of her friends wanted to she tried to save Connor on Mars, and instead of being able to transport, because she can teleport herself from Earth to like her home planet, but somehow when the explosion happened, she actually went to a middle dimension, which happened to be the Phantom Zone, and he was somehow influenced by Zod and was unwilling to leave, forcing her to literally leave and go see the prince for help. And of course, it's like they're all like, this is crazy. Are we actually going to believe this? Mm-hmm. Superman uses X-ray vision under her now wrapped arm that was, burning in lava.
Yeah, burned by the lava.
Sees the Legion ring, is like, yeah, I think she's telling the truth. And of course, Black Lightning looks at him like, really? That's it? Okay. That's all we get. Back in subspace.
Yep. We see Zod and Ship are flying towards the tower, and they say, okay, we're going to use the Legion ring to try to communicate with them, because we're getting a ping on the tower from Phantom Girl's ring. Ma'ala then turns into Chameleon Boy, and Clark reaches out and says, hey, are you the other Legionnaires? He's like, hey, yeah, we are. Clark says, okay, well, don't explain everything, but just a little bit of the Legion so we can, affirm that who you are. Phantom Girl isn't sure. They kind of go back and forth. He talks to Wally, he talks to Saturn Girl, but this is all just about Alpha turning into the Legionnaires to try to, trick the gang.
Well, you're jumping the gun quite a bit, my dude.
Oh, because okay,
after Alpha after Laura's like, hey, right. We're gonna hack the rings. But Alpha is like, or takes one of the rings, turns into Chameleon Boy. He's like, we can do something better. We go back to the Watchtower, where Superman cannot get Kid Flash, Nightwing, or Zatanna on the line, and is like, okay, have you been in contact with our friends, Phantom Girl? And she's like, no. And of course Black Lightning's like, all right, your turn. Tell me what you know. And Superman's like, can't, not yet. Just trust me on this one. And of course, Black Lightning's like, uh-huh. And McGann's like, okay, you want to try this again? Try getting to the Phantom Zone. And Phantom Girl's like, okay, look, it was an accident the first time, and I'm really bad at phasing other people as well, just so you know. And McGann's like, look, you gotta try. So and you know, I think it was also mentioned by Phantom Girl. She's like, well, I mean, the Phantom Zone projector is still on New Genesis, and Forager, who's sitting there, is like, actually, that was destroyed. So Phantom Girl's like, okay, you know what? We'll try. So she phases with McGann. She phases McGann to try to say that name.
Yeah, we're waiting.
Bixel, I think I want to say, because it's like, all right, look, to all the viewers here. I spelt this name too, by the way. BGTZL. Try to say that word. It has no vowels whatsoever. Anyway, and it's like a destroyed wasteland. And McGann's like, is this the Phantom Zone? And she's like, no. This is actually my hometown, my home planet in your time. And then so she's like, and McGann's like, let's try again. Only I will psychically help you with what I've seen, like, you know, to try to get Connor, like to connect with Connor. And then they just reappear in the watchtower, and it, like, to no avail. Yep.
And as we cut back to the Phantom Zone, the Young Justice team are trying to undo Connor's confusion. Cal offers to Zod, like, okay, we're not going to let you all out, Zod, but we can give you guys a preliminary trial, see if you guys are justified in, you know, escaping this prison since you've been here for so long. But they are assured that their sentences, like, they're like, no, they're lying, you're not going to let us out. So they like say no, but they try to discuss a, you know, amicable solution to this thing for the Kryptonians who were wrongly left in here longer than they should have been. With no answer, they know that the team cannot be trusted because there's, you know, no real council of the Kryptonians anymore. So they do not trust them. Their powers don't work as well in the Phantom Zone. We see like his like water whips don't work as well. Zatanna's magic is like slightly effective, but only directly. A lot of the other abilities and weapons aren't really functioning too well against the Kryptonians, who have full control of their abilities, not Kryptonian abilities, but their Phantom Zone abilities. Cal is able to make physical contact with them through punches, but they still end up losing the fight in the long run.
And then we cut back
to the tower.
Yep, back at the watchtower, where, as you know, McGann and Phantom Girl failed to get to the Phantom Zone. Danny's like, hey, look, here's an idea. McGann, you create a psychic link, like make a psychic link. Let's talk. And, you know, McGann does, and he's like, okay, look, I've kind of caught the zone's like transdimensional frequency while it was open in New Genesis, so I can literally like guide you guys there. And Phantom Girl's like, I only work with organic. I don't do frequencies. And Danny's like, dude, no problem. I literally like I mean, you know, we can find another way. Black Lightning's like, look, New Genesis has mother boxes, right? We could use one of those, right? And McGann's like, wait a minute, hold on, guys. Danny, this is that thing that's killing you, right? So why would you? And he's like, no, I got this. I can do this. And so, cut to Orion boom tubing into the watchtower with a mother box, and a plan, of course. So, you know, they're like, hey, thanks for coming on short notice. And he's like, and Orion's like, okay, look, here's the problem. If you boom tube them here, there's a lot of Kryptonian criminals in the Phantom Zone. Boom tubing them here is a bad idea. However, on this planet, points at a red planet, Trombus, there's a red sun orbiting it. So if you go here, since they're Kryptonian, they're not gonna gain any superpowers whatsoever. And they're like, oh, that's a great idea. And of course Orion's like, we might want to use Rocket's bubbles for this. This will help. And then McGann's like, no, we can't get a hold of them. So, you know, we don't know. We're really like out of options. And of course, you know, they're like, all right, we'll have someone watching the watchtower. let's go to Trombus. And that's when Chameleon Boy is like, hey,
Yeah.
Phantom Girl, you there? Me and Saturn Girl are here, and we were abducted by Lord Zod, but we just narrowly escaped. And of course, Superman's like, "Is Kid Flash with you?" And it's like, "Yeah," and, changes Bart's voice. "Yeah, I'm right
Yeah.
here, buddy." What about Nightwing and Zatanna? No, we don't know anything about that. And Phantom Girl's like, "All right, cool. We're going to Trombus to open a portal to the Phantom Zone." Oh, wait, why are you doing that? Connor's still alive. Cool. Great. Yeah, so you're going to Trombus? We're actually nearby. We'll stop there with you. We'll stop there and meet you there. And it's like, all right, cool. Let's head there. Back at the zone, however.
Yeah, the team has been thoroughly beaten by the Kryptonian criminals. And Dick's like, oh, I didn't want to do this, but I have no choice. And he pulls out a little box of kryptonite. Zod's kind of like, what the fuck is this supposed to be? He kind of just punches him and takes it and looks at it. And then Connor's kind of like, it's kryptonite. It's harmful to us if we had our powers. And he kind of just closes the box, put it in his pocket, like, okay, well, that's for later. Zatanna cannot snatch Connor due to his, like, stability in this world, but the team has been completely, surrounded but put together, they just port out of there back to the bus portal. This is when we cut back to the tower team.
Yes, on Trombus, where it's like really barren and it's like, it's very red because there's a red sun. And you know this because Superman walks out of the boom tube from the mother box onto this planet and immediately is just like, oh yeah, right, Kryptonian. Ugh, this ain't. I'm not gonna be good to you guys. And Black Lightning's like, don't worry, they're not gonna be. The Kryptonians aren't gonna be powered up either, so we're good. And so, Mother Box and Danny fuse together, and after a few calibrations, the boom tube opens up to the Phantom Zone. And of course, McGann is reaching out to Connor, where we go to the zone, and as they're sitting here, wait a minute, well, what's going on here? A boom tube opens up and he goes, and he's like, I don't know where this is gonna go. Some of you stay here, gather my armies. Connell, myself, and my wife are going to go through this portal and see what the hell is going on. And of course, it's like, yes, General, yes, Zod. McGann tries to contact with Connor, and he's just like, I can't. Nope, I can't do this. She's out there. I can't let her know. And, Zod's like, look, I will bear your burden. I will help you do this. Just follow me. You are part of my house now. And of course, he's like, yep, okay, sure. On Trombus, as this is happening, Lord Zod appears, and Ma'alafa'ak also immediately decimates Danny and is like,
yeah,
good.
It's like, did he kill him? What the hell?
Yeah, immediately decimates Danny and is like, fractalize. And then the box that has no Danny anymore, apparently, just literally stuns all of the good guys, where you see Lord Zod with an unconscious Kid Flash walking over. Meanwhile, Drew Zod comes out with Superboy with Superboy as well as what's his wife's name?
Ursa.
Yeah, Ursa.
Yeah.
They all emerge.
I'm surprised learn is white.
Well, right, yeah, but either way, they all walk out and emerge, and Connor immediately, because he had wounds in the Phantom Zone, immediately starts succumbing to his injuries. And
also, we forgot to mention that before they left, that McGann did sense Connor in the zone with Zod before they left the portal.
Oh yeah, I mentioned that she made contact, and he's like, no, I can't do that. But yeah, and Lord Zod's just like, hi, Mom and Dad. The galaxy is yours to command. And then we cut to the end credit scene, which is just an empty chair in War World where Tikal is sitting next to it. And that's
just having a nap. And that is where the episode ends.
No quirky dialogue or anything like that. It's just cat sleeping beside Claire.
Just Tickle, Clarion doing something on World. Who knows what that's going to come to. Interesting episode. I love how the teams are finally fucking coalescing back into their actual structures finally. And I wanted to say the thing with Danny Chase as the Kaiser Thrall. Are you familiar with like the weird the trope, like powered by a forsaken child trope?
Refresher course.
All right, have you ever heard? I'm sure you've like heard the story mentioned before, but it's the original like main or the most famous story is the ones who walk away from Omalis, which is like the famous like trope or metaphor of like this like seems to be a perfect utopian world, but somewhere there's like a child in a like being tortured and having a horrible life and just being absolute misery, but that's causing this utopia to be able to exist, and is that justifiable? It's like a thought experiment thing that's like very common, but this is like literally the fact that the most like horrible torture possible at the hands of Desaad happened to Danny Chase to make him the Kaiser Thrall. And then I was just thinking about like traumatized kids in media. How many there are, and like a common trope it is.
Right.
The first one I had was you've seen Aliens, right? The second Alien movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Newt. Yeah, who was like the only surviving human on this whole colony that was destroyed by the xenomorphs. And I always just think of the funny bit where like she's like, "That's it, that's all. Can I go now?" Like her weird
Can
line
I
read.
go now?
But like, that's like insanely things that happen there. And then of course the horrible intro to Aliens 3, Aliens Cubed, where like her and the android are just dead at the very beginning, just completely negating all of the plot and progress of that horrible child, the stuff that she's gone through. The second example I had was, of course, fucking Shinji from Evangelion.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. Oh, boy. That's... You know what? I think I know what my third guess is gonna be. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Right.
Look. Even we need to tread lightly. And we did the Golden Age arc of Berserk as a special.
Hell yeah.
Even Evangelion, we need to tread lightly before we decide to do that one on the show.
But it'll be an anime would be a weird choice, but that's not my reveal for what we're not doing yet. But the other one, I know you haven't watched Game of Thrones, but Game of Thrones fans will know Shireen, Stannis Baratheon, Stannis the Manus, the former goat of Game of Thrones. His daughter's fate at the hands of the Red Woman, the witch. It was fucking brutal what happened to her and how that affected Stannis's, vie for the throne. Another really. Then I thought about the original. Have you finished Attack on Titan?
I know enough.
Okay. Do you know the original Ymir?
Yeah, the original one.
Not the like teammate who was the
Yes, Titan, like the original Titan, the first
origin,
Titan.
the original girl who was the origin, like her fucking an absolute nightmare, terrible life with that fucking weird spine monster, that fucking ridiculousness. Now, before I go to the most famous example of a horribly traumatized child, a horrible fate for a kid, you have any examples?
Any examples of like the whole like tortured, traumatized?
Yeah,
I mean,
tortured kid stuff.
Okay, like you literally took you took my prime example. Points at Evangelion. That one was absolutely the one I was gonna use because we all know what happens to any children in that one.
Yeah, it's all terrible.
Let's see. Not at the top of my head, but I know if I think about it a little bit, I will definitely have an example or two. Hopefully not anime ones, because anime likes to use that trope a lot.
Oh yeah, because I was going to say my final example, the most famous one, of course, little needs to be said, but of course, Nina Tucker.
Yeah! I was hoping to avoid that one.
Of course, yeah, that's that. So yeah, but besides that topic of traumatized kids and the horrible fate of Danny, which I don't even remember what the hell happens with that. Well, we'll get to it eventually when we cover the next couple of episodes. But before that, any third guess before I tell you another thing we are not going to cover?
this is only a half throwaway guess, but I'm going to change to the realm of a different platform. Um, are we finally, even though we're very late and it's or very yeah very very late for it, are we finally going to cover Star Wars Visions 2 season 2?
Ah, that was another one of my list of things we are not going to cover. We are not going to cover a Star Wars series.
Well, all right.
That
Cuz
means we are not going to cover, Visions. I still want to hold off if we can either have Ed or Chris or both, preferably. I wouldn't mind covering that in another two-part thing because that was fun, but also there's more Star Wars to shout about with Ed between all of our opinions on the series. Another 7-hour
right.
episode there. I would love to cover that in a special, but that's not going to be the next thing. Yeah. Visions is not on the list. The Bad Batch, which I will say is like very mixed quality wise. Like it's actually I probably would say it has the same hit and miss rate as Clone Wars, where like there's a lot of dumb goofball fucking waste of time kiddie shit episodes, but then there's a couple of insanely cool fucking lore drops. But now I don't feel like covering that series because it's a little bit long, and also I don't feel like it needs context for Clone Wars, which is the other reason I'm not going to cover the other Star Wars series, the Tales of series. Have you watched any of those yet?
Oh, I don't have a Disney Plus yet, so.
Okay. Well, anywhere else you could have covered it. No, the
Well, yeah,
Tales
but
of.
yeah,
So far,
so we're not doing Tales of, we're not doing Bad Batch, we're not doing Rebels, is what you're saying.
No, Rebels would be fun, but no. The Tales of series, that was very high up on my list of things I wanted to do, but spoilers for Tales of the Empire. What they did with the Bear Sophie follow-up arc was absolute trash, and so like destroyed my desire to ever cover that show. I might talk about that in if we ever do a Star Wars Visions episode with the gang, with the full gang. Because that like Bear Sophie ending part for Tales of the Empire utterly destroyed any interest of mine in covering that fucking show. And so the new one, they just, as of this recording, they just announced Tales of the Bounty Hunters, which is the third series for that after Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire.
Yeah, Tales of the Bounty Hunters seems very interesting because, I mean, from the trailers that I saw, two big names, Ventress and Cad Bane.
Yeah, but like I said, I really was not happy with what they did with Barasoffy. One of my favorite characters from Clone Wars got a real fucking stupid arc in that show. That started off incredible, which is more disappointing. But anyway, Star Wars rants, you know me. I can go on for fucking hours screaming about Star Wars. But
it's true.
Yes, the third thing we are not going to cover, we are not covering a Star Wars series.
Interesting that so far, every single guess I had just happened to coincide with what we're not doing.
Hell yeah! Well, I mean,
just for you guys listening at the moment of this recording, I have no clue. I didn't know Matt was going to be doing this whole like we're not doing these things. So the fact that this is lining up perfectly scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, as you consider what we're actually going to cover. But before we get there, we are on episode 25. Over
and out. Starting on Trombus with the literally like just everything that just happened in the last episode, where it's just like, hey, this is it. We the whole galaxy is yours now. Zod looks at this kid and says, "Wait a minute, you're my kid. This can't be you." And he's like, you need. What's the secret maxim of House Zod? I forget. Isn't it like, through will there is power, through power there is will?
Yeah, pretty much sounds like the Sith thing from KOTOR.
it really does, and of course, Zod, like General Zod, which by the way, we've only been calling him by his house name. Not Drew Zod.
I think I called him Drew Zod once, maybe.
Yeah. But Urza and Zod are just like, oh my god, this is our kid. We're happy now. So what's going on here? And Lore's like, hey, right now we cannot be powered because of the red sun. But if you follow me, I can take you to a place with a yellow sun, which will allow you to get even stronger. By the way, apparently, Feora was also with them at the time. And
Hell
he
yeah.
like looks. He's like, "Hey, Feora, go back. Let everyone know what's going on. We in the meantime, we need to go and get this yellow sun power that my son talks about." And Forager, being a Green Lantern.
Oh, before that, we do get the intro before Forager's
Oh,
bit.
oh yeah, you're right. You're right. But then yeah, then after the intro card, we do actually go back to where Drew's like, okay, fine, go get my armies. We're gonna enjoy this. And of course, Forager, being a Green Lantern, like summons up enough will to break through whatever this thing is going on and starts pummeling them. And of course, Olive Hawk is like, nope. Snaps his fingers, like it snaps his finger, brain blasts her, and he's just like, "Wow, yeah, I forgot. She's a Green Lantern. She's got
Yep.
immense willpower. So we need to start we need to start doing things now."
Yep, and this is when they refer to the new device as the Mother Thrall, and Alafak and Lore have it boom tube them to Earth. This is when we cut to the Phantom Zone. The other Kryptonians are still trapped inside, but we see that the Young Justice team is also still in there. They just have not been ready to leave just yet, but they're still trying to deduce what the hell is going on. Zod doesn't want his people to be back on Earth. We see Zod doesn't want his people left in the Phantom Zone, but Lore says no, we need to get moving because the other team's gonna awake soon, and we got to get the fuck out of here. Zod, but this is before they actually boom tube through the portal. Zod grabs Connor, and they all prepare to leave. But as they do, the Mother Thrall releases the superheroes, and we see that Zod's team are now in the Fortress of Solitude at the North Pole.
Yep. And
Connor immediately starts to heal up a little bit because he's now under the yellow sun. And Lore is just like, well, he's not going to be healing for long. I'm going to kill him. Ursa and Zod are like, what the hell are you doing, boy? You listen to your parents. And he's like, no, father, you don't understand. This guy's fucking House L. He's a traitor. And they're like, my son's not listening to me. How dare you? And he's like, oh, okay, fine. We'll leave him alone. Because like Ursa and Zod are both like very disciplinarian to their son, saying like, no, you're going to listen to us. You're not going to hurt that kid because we made a promise to him. Then Lore points out that there are 2 solar pods that can charge the Kryptonians much faster than just a regular sun. And he tells the Mother Thrall to open the portal to the zone again so that they can retrieve the other Kryptonians into the Fortress of Solitude. Meanwhile, the Young Justice team they come through that portal and they say like, no, they like stop halfway through the portal and say we're gonna stop the Kryptonians from getting through.
But they do need to know where the other side goes. So they're like, Dick's like, all right, I got this. So Dick leaves, sees that, he sees that they're in the Fortress of Solitude, does a Batman where he like puts explosives on the doors to the solar pods and they explode. Not before Lore literally beats the fuck out of him, and he gets
but I was like, before we do have a quick scene of back on the planets with the Clark and the Justice League team beginning to wake up.
Oh yeah, they do just wake up like, what's going on? Yeah,
and then Kid Flash is like just goes to the ship and Forager's ring, and they just kind of start waking up and start helping the team recover. But then the Phantom Zone scene happens.
Yeah, and then like the Phantom Zones open up, and everything, and just after Dick tried to take out the pods, it's like, yeah, so this isn't good. Oh wait, no, there's a lot of jumping in this, isn't there?
Yeah, but so you went a little bit ahead like I did before.
Yeah.
The Justice League team uses Wally, Ship, and Forager they're going to travel to Earth and try to figure out where the hell they ported to. The Legionnaires conference with each other about everything that's happened with the Phantom Girl and with Chameleon Boy and Saturn Girl. They're all trying to figure out what the hell's on their end. Clark is like a little, introspective and upset that he's finally met new Kryptonians, and of course they're all evil assholes. The Young Justice team, then they do the bit with the he did a "you shall not pass" joke, very dumb.
Oh, he's been waiting to say that. I've been waiting.
And then they reference the 300. It's like, you remember how the Spartans in the Thermopylae, the fucking crack in the movie, basically the movie 300 with the little like narrow passage they can't all get through. And yeah, then this is when Dick goes through and blows
Yeah,
up the
he goes
pods.
through, blows up the pods. Lore like attacks him in a rage, throwing him, and he gets air quote crushed to death.
He gets his head busted open apparently, and
Yeah,
seemingly
head
dies.
busted open, and of course he's like, "No, my parents. What are you? What are you?" And they both literally like stand up, and they're like, "Hey, we're actually looking fine. Like that really did power us up. That's crazy." And Ursa's like, well, I'm still upset because we didn't get fully, and she's like pissed right now. She's like,
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to get stronger. And Laura's like, hey, we need patience. And she's like, I was in the Phantom Zone for 40 years. You do not get to tell me about patience. We need this power. We need to have control. I just want to be able to rule. And immediately, as if on cue, every time she's yelling, you see a flash of an eye. Now remember, think back to when we were on New Genesis, one of the many artifacts. Well, because of her rage, out of Lore's sleeve, you see the Eye of Ekron appear, and it pretty much claims her as her new master. But before we get there, back in the zone.
Yeah, the Kryptonians are like, the Fiora's like, Kryptonians, harness your rage, as they begin to, like, get really pumped up and, building up their anger energy. But as they are doing that, the Dunkleosteus monster, that weird giant fish thing flying around, begins to get summoned to the portal. They begin to flee into the portal as the Kryptonians follow, and the big monster's kind of just wreaking havoc. But in the portal, in the halfway point, we start to see that all their powers, Rocket's powers, Cal, Dick, and their powers start actually working, and they're able to much more easily take on the Kryptonian bad guys in the portal. But as they're fighting them and actually beating them back this time, we see that the one is really upset. And she's like, no, I'm not going to go back. You can't send me back. I've been there for too long. My sentence was supposed to be much shorter than everyone else's. As she's pissed and yelling, we see the Dunkleosteus kind of just pop up out of the portal, grab her by the arm, and pull her back through, which sucks.
Back
with Lore.
Yeah, at the fortress. Ursa and Drew are like, "What's going on?" And Lore's like, "Oh yeah, so about that thing. So that was a powerful, really powerful artifact known as the Eye of Ekron, which in my time." In the 31st century, was wielded by someone known as the Emerald Empress. And Drew's just like, wait a minute. So she's the new one, right? He's like, yeah, it looks like that you get all that power now. And of course, Drew's just like, okay, but first we need to focus. Even though this is very fortuitous, we need to actually, how's the guy that came through the portal? And of course, Lore listens for the heartbeat, and it slows down and it stops. He's like, he's dead. I can confirm this. All right, good. Now we need to you need to go through the portal and get our Kryptonians back because it's been a long time and none of them have come through. So it's like, yes, you're right. So he runs through, like he goes to run through, and Ma'alafa'akis is like, hey, you need to be really quick. He's like, well, just keep this open. What's the problem? He's like, it's not control, it's physics. Boom tubes are not supposed to be open this long. Ever.
Yeah, that was very fun.
Yeah, and then we cut back to Bioship.
Yeah, the JLA squad finally arrive on Earth, and they find Zod's gang in the Fortress of Solitude. Meanwhile, in the boom tube hallway, Rocket begins to put up a force field to try to stop the Kryptonians and Lore Zod on the other side. But as they're doing that, Lore begins to heat up her shields with his heat vision. And as that's happening, the Eye of Ekron begins to talk to Ursa. And while that's happening, and Ursa's conversing with it, Zod reads the news and learns about the Daily Planet and Clark's, history on that side of the thing. The portal is beginning to close, and everyone of the Young Justice team begins to flee. Rocket tells them that, hey, we need to do something about this. I think I might be able to hold them off, but you guys escape. as the portal closes and she's seemingly trapped inside between dimensions, but the rest of the Young Justice team ends up back on the bus.
On the Magic School bus.
Yep.
But meanwhile, on their way to the fortress on the bioship, it's like, Superman's like, it's gonna immediately warn them if we're coming. And McGann's like, nah, bioship is like, it already understands how your Kryptonian security system works. They're not gonna see us coming. And then immediately we see the Eye of Ekron and the new Emerald Empress appear and literally shoot them down.
Yep.
And then as they're in the wreckage, you see Zod walk over. His son finally got out of the boom tube, walks over and sees everyone is dead except for Superman. And he's just like, look, I know you know me, right? So we shouldn't fight. Yes, I know we're opposite ends, but like you bow to me and we can rule. And of course Superman's like, yeah, pass. He's like, well, that's unfortunate. Literally hits him in the chest with that kryptonite because that
Malafa'ak floats it across things. Yeah.
Yep, and he's like, oh wow, it really does work. And of course Lore's like, cool, we can kill him and we can kill this guy right here because I promise you nothing good's gonna happen if Kal-El is still alive. And Zod looks and goes, I have a better idea. And then we see a boom tube open up into the in Metropolis, where Zod and his current group walk out with Superboy carrying Superman. And they cause a little bit of destruction, and some of the cameras get pointed at Zod, and he's like, people of Earth, there's no need for alarm. We're just here to take over your planet. And before you think to yourselves, oh, we can be saved by, other terrestrial forces, that's your Superboy carrying Superman.
Yep.
Superman's dying, and Superboy is following me. And as he says that, the Ursa like changes the L symbol to Zod on Superboy's like suit. And he's like, all right.
Has all the cameras focus on them as well.
Yeah, yep. And he's like, all right, so here's what's going to happen, right? To show that, we mean business, looks over at Superboy. He's going to, on my orders, he's going to snap your hero's neck and kill him right here and now. And then we see that the ending credit scenes are all the toy cars that Rocket's kid has upside down, and that's it.
Yeah, the post-credit scenes. Yeah,
that's all.
all
that's
of her
all
toys.
it is.
Yeah. Yep.
That's where the episode ends.
Yeah, another one down. Finally, the Kryptonians are out. They're mostly powered up, but not fully, and they're about to begin to fuck shit up. Very fucking cool. Now, of course, with any kind of evil Kryptonian arc, you got to go to the old trope that I personally am a fan of, but other people like to poo-poo a lot. The evil Superman trope.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Hey, like I said, I love Kryptonians. I like it. Okay, so yeah. There's a lot of examples of it. Of course, it was mostly in recent years, but like I was going to go through a couple of them that I know and just like, maybe their origins and stuff like that. You can start with one of the most famous ones that we were discussing earlier on as well, because you mentioned Invincible. Of course, we got to go with Omni-Man and the rest of the Viltrumites. If you know the actual like origins, like it's not a spoiler to say that he's not a good dude because you find out in the first episode pretty quick. But the actual origins of the Viltrumites and their homeworld and Omni-Man's backstory is like he lies about it being similar to Superman, which is just a fun little gag, but then the actual backstory is actually pretty different and really, really fascinating, which I'm actually a pretty good fan of.
And
if you ever had a chance, yeah.
Oh, no. If you ever had a chance.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you had a chance, the show is fantastic. Definitely watch it. And it's going to get crazier. Their third season is airing right now. Like I said, we're probably maybe going to eventually cover it, but I already said we're not doing a superhero series, so we're not covering it next.
But speaking of evil Superman tropes, he's not as much as Superman, but one of my big ones I go to is points at Homelander from The Boys.
Yeah, Homelander's fantastic. The comic is meh. I would say I'm not a fan of the Boys comic. It's a lot of really dumb, edgy, early aughts BS I'm not a huge fan of. The show is absolutely fantastic. Anthony Starr is an incredible Homelander. He's and his origin is incredible. He like lies about, of course, once again, he lies about his origin being similar to Superman, but the character's actual origin story kind of leans into why his personality is the way it is, and it's like not what you think, and it's very. I'm a huge fan. That character is fantastic. He's very fun. Omni-Man and Homelander are both incredibly fun to play in Mortal Kombat. You can check those videos out on the channel, of course, just to pimp my own shit. Have you seen The Boys yet, Ben?
Honestly, no, and I don't plan on it.
Oh, you should. It's good. Well, have you watched my? Did I do an Omni-Man? I haven't done an Omni-Man. I've done a Ghostface and an.
You did. You did. Yeah, you did Omni-Man, but you haven't done Homelander.
I might do Homelander. Just go through, do all of his. Yeah.
But I mean, I already get the premise of The Boys, and look, I'm gonna be quite honest with you. The whole like superheroes, but super dark and edgy and all that stuff. It's not my thing, really.
Yeah, like I say, the comic is some incredible edgelord early aughts. Honestly, cringe to me. I really hate the comic. It's really not worth reading at all. It's pretty shitty. The show, for the most part, is incredibly funny. It's another Seth Rogen, Evan Goldstein, I believe, joint. Like all those other shows, like Preacher. Fucking incredible. I think the Boys is much better than the comic is. I'll say that.
Well, I'm not even comparing it to the comic, because I always go with
just in premise,
yeah, just with the premise of the show itself. Because I usually, if it's anything that's comic book related, I watch the show and then I let you do the comic, unless I'm like really interested in it. And that one it's funny. You're gonna think me very strange with this one, okay? The Boys, Watchmen, Sin City. They're just really not my cup of tea, really.
Oh, I love Sin City. Have you seen the movie?
I have, and I remembered liking the movie, but like that one was one of the ones where I thought the comic was gonna be, and I didn't. I remembered not liking the comic.
Yeah, is that Alan Moore or Grant Morrison? Who's that?
I forget. It's been too long,
whatever,
honestly.
Yeah. Another of those like edgy people in the aughts.
You're gonna hate what I'm about to say. And yes, by the way, to you listeners, this is not gonna change Matt's opinion at all, mind you. This is still gonna happen eventually on the show. I kind of don't like Invincible either.
Oh, you should definitely give it a go. I mean, like,
we're going to. We're absolutely. Of course, yeah. Like I said, we're absolutely going to. Like I said, even if I had watched it and said I didn't like it, I know that's going to be one of the shows we cover on this, and I'm still going to, and I'm not going to like shit on it a lot. But like,
also, I was going to say, no spoiler, but like the big subversive, bloody, the whole meme about it being a super bloody show. That only is just to like as a pop-off twist to the end of the first episode. The actual nature of the series itself is very traditional comic book like tone, very traditional comic book like story plot lines and everything like that. But yeah, like just the initial pop and the what's it called, like the reputation is like a little bit skewed, but like the show itself is very, very traditional superhero comics.
And then you get to the end of season 1.
Yeah, season 1, but there's a point to that, but like it's like I said, overall the series does get judged negatively for it actually, but it's very traditional comics later on, and like the overarching development of Mark as a character does go through some really cool shit when he meets characters like spoilers for I think probably the season that's not even out yet. What's going to happen next in the comics? Dinosaurus. That character is probably one of my favorite characters in the goddamn planet. His motives actually completely flip the series on its head and completely change Mark as a character more so than anything else that's happened in the series so far. When you meet Dinosaurus, you know that shit's about to completely change for the tone of the series. But anyway, if and when we cover Invincible, we'll get into that. But yeah, the other evil Superman. I'm sure you've never heard of the comic Irredeemable.
Nope, never heard of it.
Okay, there's another evil Superman called the Plutonian, who just successfully takes over the world and is just steady ruling it as an evil Superman. And he's just like, it's a fantastic comic series because it's like, where all these other ones are like, them trying to be evil or them like, be really secretly evil. This one is just like an evil Superman that just completely takes over the planet successfully and is just like ruling it, but pretending everything's normal. But like everyone knows that he's bad and in charge and overt about it. Very, very good. Actually, I'll say not very good. It's an okay series.
So hey. Speaking of evil Superman trope, I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't mention one in particular that you and I both know very well. And that's Injustice Superman, because let's be honest, that is if Superman turned evil, and that doesn't really count because it literally is evil Superman. That's all that I have the Injustice
whole Injustice 2 series on the YouTube channel from the stream I did of it. I fucking love that game to death. I would do that whole story any day of the week. The other ones, of course, the Marvel examples, just to keep the segment going on much longer. Are you familiar with the Sentry?
By name only.
Okay. Yeah, we made a reference to him in a Movie Girl episode a while ago, but he's of course, as of this recording, we're recording it close to the reveal of the Thunderbolts movie, where, spoiler, he is the main antagonist of the Thunderbolts movie. He is basically an evil Superman, but like his main gimmick is that his main quote-unquote villain is a being called the Shadow, who every time the Sentry does anything, the Shadow does something equally horrible. On the opposite side, like the Sentry would stop a building from toppling over with his Superman-like powers, but then you find out that the Shadow, sunk a ship while he was doing that. And it's like every time he saves somebody, he kills somebody, and then you find out that the Shadow, spoiler alert, is actually just the Sentry. He actually has two personalities, and his other half does evil acts as opposed to the Sentry who does good acts. But then eventually they just fused into one asshole villain named the Sentry, so now he's just the Sentry these days.
Lovely.
The other one would be Hyperion. Are you familiar with Hyperion?
Once again, by name alone.
Okay. He's another Marvel character who's basically, again, just like an evil Superman with laser vision and everything. But he's an alien with a pretty much like Mad Magazine parody of Superman's origin. He's from another world where, like, basically they have, a fake Wonder Woman, fake Green Lantern, fake Flash team. And, he's from a planet, and this planet was destroyed, and he was, sent to Earth, but he's super powerful, and he, protects it, but he's also turns out to be just an asshole villain who the Avengers and everybody just beats up occasionally. An interesting character, the Exiles run, where he was on the Exiles team, and he just proves to be an absolute fucking nightmare to have to deal with, is really fucking interesting, because he is an incredibly powerful, it's literally like a Superman. But that's enough for evil Superman. Like I said, it's a trope that I don't mind. Obviously, you can tell that Ben is not a fan of the trope.
Oh, no. Now. Hold on. Don't you jump the gun. You're sort of right. Because, and here's the thing. Yeah. It is an overplayed trope, hence why it's called a trope. And so, with tropes, you have a lot of people who do it well, and you have a lot of people who don't do it well. And I'm not talking about you're talking about Superman specifically, like evil Superman trope. But then you have, I'm going to use this evil fill in the blank kind of trope. Because you could say, in technicality, that Moon Knight from Marvel is like an evil the Batman, because he's like a rich guy, but he's also like split personality kind of thing, but he's like Batman if he was actually insane kind of thing. And then but then this is the whole thing. That trope is just, I don't really think much into it. I don't go out of my way for it, but it's like, oh, it's just an evil version of this character. Please tell me how you're going to do this kind of thing. So it's not like I'm not going to immediately oh, evil Superman, good day. Because that's, what do you think Zod is? Zod's just evil Superman. But, but it's just I go in this trope cautiously. That's all I have to say about it. But now, Matt.
Yeah.
I am gonna play this a little differently. Okay. I currently don't have a guess. So
Okay.
what is it? So far you said not superhero, not Netflix,
Yep.
not Star Wars.
Yep.
So what's the fourth thing that it is not?
Well, anybody who knows me, Matthew, I am a massive, huge fan of the Warhammer universe. Both Age of Sigmar and 40K. I have thousands of dollars of fucking figures to prove it.
It's true. It's true. He does.
And,
I can confirm.
of course, anybody who is familiar with Warhammer Plus or Warhammer TV knows that there are actually quite a few Warhammer animated series that I would love to cover. And this one was the one that was most likely closest to being picked by me. It was between 3 different series. There's the Warhammer Age of Sigmar series called Black Talon, about a female Stormcast Eternal named Black Talon, who's like a specific named figure and character in the series. It's just following her trying to solve a mystery while like going through the fantasy Warhammer universe. There's about 6 or so episodes of it. It's pretty short, but it was recently announced for a second season. The animation style is very, very similar to Metalocalypse, I would say. But there's like no humor at all in it, so it's just like imagine Metalocalypse with no humor, tons of gore.
It's literally Warhammer. You cannot put humor in Warhammer. You can try, absolutely not. You will fail.
No, it's a deadly serious show. But yeah, Black Town was one of the shows I wanted to thinking about. Another one is a mini series. It's a 3D animated series called Pariah Nexus, I believe. It's like 3 different vignettes or something like that, but it's just like following a specific war, a specific storyline. But it's they follow Sisters of Battle, the Astartes, and everything like that. Those Space Marines. I might decide to do that as another little special because it's only 3 episodes and it's pretty famous. The main one that I would have done would have been Warhammer series called Hammer and Bone, which is 15 different like vignettes or stories following different characters, different units, different armies. And they're animated in a number of different styles. Some of them are 3D, some of them are, hand-drawn, some of them are different types. But it's an anthology like Visions. It's about 15 episodes, and that was probably top tier on my list of what I wanted to do. But at the last minute, I decided against it because tonally, we still have a lot of Metalocalypse to cover, and it would be as grimdark as as Metalocalypse is, but without the humor, which would be very dour for the podcast to be doing for a while. So that is not. We are not doing a Warhammer series for the time being as our next project.
Okay, I am going to say this right here and now. Mm-hmm. No amount of guessing that I could have done would have amounted to even becoming close, because Warhammer shows are non-existent to me. So even if I guessed and you said that, wow, okay, color me stumped. I did not know you were going to say anything about Warhammer.
Nice. Okay, I will say for the final reveal, I'll save at the end, obviously, but I could have just broaden that out to nothing grimdark. It's gonna be it's gonna be lighthearted for the most part. So and so the clues you have,
I am gonna say this here and now. I'm gonna say it a few other times. After Metalocalypse, I'm gonna kind of pull away because we did like 3 series. I guess you could say technically 4 because I guess in its own merit, Primal is kind of a dark series, but like
it's a little bit of.
We literally did Castlevania, not Nocturne. We did Spawn. We did Primal, technically, and I'm doing Metalocalypse. I'm gonna try to get the hell away from that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm sure this show will be very counter tone to it. Trust me, it's a very specific tone that I would say probably is very much directly opposite of Metalocalypse.
Which I'm okay with.
Get to the we'll get to that when we get to it. So the series. If you want, I'll at the end I'll let you have a final guess before we do it. But yeah, it is not Star Wars. It is not grimdark. It is not 40K. It is not on Netflix. It is not a superhero show. But
okay, I think I can muster up one more guess after this last episode before you do your big reveal. But in the meantime, we should finally get to episode 26, the series finale of this entire show. Death And rebirth.
And rebirth. Connor is still in Metropolis, holding the head of Clark Kent. Zod gives his speech that Clark was sent here to take over this planet, obviously, because they could have sent him to New Genesis, where he would have been powerful and surrounded by allies of Jorah, which is a crazy reveal that Jorah was in communication with New Genesis. He wants to, but yeah, Zod says he is going to take over the planet, and he once again restates that he is going to have Connor kill Clark. That when we hit the intro.
And then we cut to the North Pole, where we see Nightwing is absolutely still alive. And when he emerges from the fortress, he sees the crashing and everyone's dead kind of thing. But is soon revealed that that was just an illusion that Miss Martian put up, just so that the Kryptonians would think that they are actually dead. And that, Superman pretty much solidified that by actually not being the only survivor of the crash. So, it's just like, hey, what about you? He's like, oh, I'm doing my illusions of my own. I did an old wrestling trick where head wounds bleed a lot more and look worse than they actually are. And thanks to Batman, I learned how to slow my heartbeat to the point of it seeming like it stopped.
Yeah, a very classic, that's like a 60s Batman gag.
Seriously. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, but anyway, McGann's like, okay, so he's like, yeah, we were in where were you? McGann's like, where were you guys? Dick's like, yeah, Rocket, Zatanna, myself, and Kaldor, and there was a fifth one, wasn't there?
Well, they mentioned that they believe that Rocket didn't make it.
Well, no. I'm saying of the group that went there, there was someone else I'm missing, I think, because I only listed
Tigress,
4.
Tigress,
that's the one. That's the one.
Yeah,
Tigress. We all went to the Phantom Zone to look for Connor, and she's like, "Oh, well, that's funny because that boom tube and stuff, that was us, because we were looking for Connor too." But then, of course, the Emerald Empress attacked us. And attacked us. Yeah, what happened with that? Oh, Saturn Girl gave us like a warning, and so, Superman and Orion took the brunt of that blast, while the rest of us just created this illusion. Where's Rocket? And he's like, he was like, yeah, we created that. And, they went to Metropolis. Metropolis? That's where my team is right now, actually. Hey, so everyone's there, including Rocket, right? Rocket didn't make it. Shit. We'll mourn about this later. In the meantime, we're going to be going to Metropolis right now. And yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I was saying, yeah. There's still how they get there is a little bit before we cut back there.
Right. Because it's like, the Cosmic Treadmill is out of commission right now, and Bioship is now literally healing herself right now. So we have no way of getting there right now. Oh, and then you see Baby arrive, and it's like, well, maybe we have a chance.
Yeah, and also Kid Flash is gonna head there. They also have Forager.
Yes. But then back at Planet Circle, Zod is just like, murder him. Murder him. He is, and so, murder Superman. And in the flashbacks, Connor remembers, we gotta stick together. We're family. We've got nothing here except for us kind of thing. And Superboy, remembers also that Superman's like, hey, so, back in the day where he's like, hey, I hear you took up Kent, and him slowly becoming a Kent kind of thing, and an uncle and all that stuff. So Superboy's like, I can't. He's family. I can't kill family.
Yeah, we see him meeting the Kent family. He picked the name originally because of Kent Nelson was the one who saved him. But he says, he meets his nephew, John. And he finally confesses to Zod, I can't, he's family, I can't kill him. And then the Lord's like, see, I told you, kill them both.
And of course, Zod's rolls his eyes, gets the kryptonite ready, and then all of a sudden, yoink, Kid Flash snatches it. And then, immediately, Lore goes after him, and then gets hit by a random fucking school bus. and then turns invisible. Meanwhile,
Hell yeah.
In Baby.
Yeah, as
Sounds
Baby
so weird to
flies, they I know, right? They see that the Zods will by now almost be fully charged by sunrise, so we need to defeat them before that happens. Ma'alafa Ak begins to open the portal to the Phantom Zone to release more Kryptonians once again. Just as the Young Justice team arrive and says we need to fight them before they get fully powered, because if all these Kryptonians are powered, we're going to have no way of stopping them, but they're going to be just coming out.
Oh, and also, Dick looks at McGann and is like, okay, look, I know we've had issues with you abusing your powers, but with these guys, you legitimately cannot hold back. You have to do it with these guys.
Yeah. The Young Justice team is fighting the Kryptonians hand in hand, including the giant Non, who's are already big, unpowered. He's still strong and tough for them to deal with. While Wally covers their back and kind of also just throws some punches occasionally while they're fighting fist to fist. Eventually, Connor finally busts out of his thing and betrays them.
Well, now hold on. No, he doesn't, because when everyone, as they're all fighting each other, Baby actually does appear. McGann appears in front of Connor and snaps him out of his funk. Then he starts betraying Zod.
Yep. Then they say, okay, well, fuck this. We're going to kill he's told to kill Calderon, and he won't do it. Danny is now recovering in the Kaiser Thrall, but Ma'alafa Ak is still fucking with him, and he's still not completely recovered just yet. But we found out that Danny's not dead, apparently. You forgot. Before that, the others are showing. Before everyone shows up again, does communicate with Connor. Shows him a clip show of the series so far, including season 1, their whole relationship, all their will they won't they in the first season when they're just hanging out in the den, mother den. And this is when finally they're realizing that they're a little bit caught off guard with their teams. So the Young Justice team and everybody else who's there decides to switch up partners a little bit, while Zatanna is going to use her powers to revive Clark and get him fully powered without the kryptonite poisoning him. The Zods, Lore and Drew, and then Connor and Cal team up with a little Kryptonian versus Kryptonian showdown coming up finally. McGann begins to fight Ursa, which is a very fun little fight with the Emerald Empress, but unfortunately, McGann is a very powerful psychic and just
it's like you think that the Emerald Empress wins, but they're like literally ripping out McGann's heart, and then McGann like appears behind and says, like, "Oh, you sure about that?" And then like
brain blast.
literally brain blasts or Matt.
Yeah.
Come on. You can use one. You can do it one time.
Oh, a mind thrust.
Thank you. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
You went through this entire series never saying that. You get one. But yeah, and then of course, there's a lot more fighting going around, and Danny, in Danny's mind, he's suffering under Ma'alafa Ak, but Saturn Girl's like, "Hey, you should stop doing that." And Ma'alafa Ak is like, "Dude, shut the fuck up. You can't beat me." And she goes, "Right, but I can distract you." And then, in the real world, you see, there's a bunch of, phase shifting going on and stuff. And, as, Ma'alafa Ak is, down for the count, Saturn Girl's like, "Hey, Danny, you should kick him out." So Danny turns big and legitimately kicks Ma'alafa Ak out.
Yeah.
Punts that guy.
They're fighting a psychic battle, but also Chameleon Boy is turned into the real Ma'alafa Ak monster, and they're fighting in that form as well. So he's being attacked on two fronts because, the Martians are that powerful. Clark and Connor team up moves where he does a weird version of the fastball special where he tosses Connor at them, and they just kind of just beating the crap out of Lore and Drew. Finally back in control, Danny opens a boom tube back to the Phantom Zone, where the Kryptonians are beginning to be tossed back in while they're still underpowered.
However, as the big guy Non are being taken over by the West Maneuver, he falls in, and Fiora's like, "No, I won't let this happen." And we see that she gets trapped in a force bubble, where you see Rocket is alive, and there's a time sphere behind her.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, just can't explain now. Dumps her in the boom tube, and even like Danny blasts Ma'alafa'ak into the tube, and as he's falling in, McGann's like, "Oh yeah, cool. You were happy that he died, weren't you?" And he's like, "No, no, 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 no," and falls into the Phantom Zone.
Oh yeah, Malafak finally defeated. Piece of shit.
Right.
Meanwhile, finally, with the Kryptonians mostly all taken care of, Clark and Connor finally do also just unceremoniously knock Zod back into the Phantom Zone as well, and he is finally defeated.
Ursa's like, Ursa's like, "No, not my family. I need to destroy them." The Eye of Ekron makes a bubble around her and flies away, and she's like, "Wait, no, no, stop, stop. What are you doing?" Lore sees the time sphere, runs in, goes in, and vanishes without a trace.
Yep, they're like, oh, great. They say, well, now that he's back in his goddamn time sphere, we're right back to where we fucking started, and what the hell are we gonna do? And this is when they're kind of just confused, but for the most part, the situation has been almost entirely resolved. And then we cut to the news, and we see Beast Boy talking to Stargirl about his recovery, what he's been going through. He's back on the show. He's back on the team.
No.
Or he's going to be on the maybe he's back.
He's not. Show, yeah. He's not going to go back to the team or the show yet because he's still recovering. But yeah, he's happy that all of his fans are like, happy and like, hey, he's going through this. Maybe we can get help, kind of thing. In which case, Johnny runs in as Clark's like, oh. Turns off TV.
Yeah, turn the TV off. Turn the TV off.
And then, of course, Johnny's like, wait, what was that about Uncle Connor? It's like, oh. So remember when we told you about death? We were wrong. And Johnny's just like, Johnny Tiny, I knew he was alive. He's like, well, we didn't. Then in Happy Harbor, we see, Traya and Cullen are setting out chairs at the
we watch Clark and Lois and John watch the wedding invite video of
yeah, and they're like, hey, we're gonna do this as quick as possible so nothing else happens. Then we go to Happy Harbor at the car house, and
we see
people
McGann's
are starting
family
to come in.
Coming through a portal. Yeah, McGann's family come through. We see that the sister is using her old name as opposed to the Green Martian name she was using before.
Emery Maors is actually going to be Emery Maors. And, they're like, oh, we're happy. And, we see Black Canary with the other main leaguers is like, okay, look, we need a better solution for this because after everything that happened, children and adults alike are, in need of, stepping back,
This superhero shit is traumatic.
Yeah, and she's like, we need a better place for treatment of things and just to take a break from it all. Meanwhile, away from the group, Gar and Perdita are talking, and Gar's
before that, we have a quick scene of the New Gods and Forager coming through the portal for the wedding.
Right. Yes. And then of course, Gar and Perdita are talking, and Perdita's like, look, I'm really happy you're doing better. And I'm always going to love and care for you. But I kind of moved on, and I think you need to as well. And Gar is a bit broken, but then again, earlier, he did mention he was afraid to talk to her about this. Probably for this reason. Meanwhile, meanwhile, Black Limousine appears, and we see Connor and Clark have arrived. And Kaldur is just like, Kaldur is talking with, Orion and Chameleon Boy and Green Lantern. And all of them,
conferring about what to do with the Kryptonians and the them there.
So the Kryptonian, the Kryptonians, because Kaldor's like, okay, so that parole thing, I really do want them to have that because it really is not fair to them that they spent a 5-year sentence for 40 years, and even Connor and Clark are like, yeah, no, that's a great idea, but what can we do? And Clark's like, wait a minute. What if we put them on Trombus? Red Sun, they won't have power, and they can just build from scratch there, kind of thing. And then, meanwhile, on top of that, Orion is like, wait, so from what I understood, you didn't survive the tube, right? So why are you here? How did you make it? So Rocket's like, so
Oh,
about
wait, before
that.
that, yeah, yeah, she doesn't explain yet because this week we cut to, after they say they do want to parole the Kryptonians and give them a planet. We cut to Vandal Savage and Clarion for a quick second, where we
Oh
see
no,
that they have,
it was Vandal Savage and Ultra Humanite, and you're right because they're like, yeah, we gathered them all.
yeah, they say they
There's
used Clarion's access to the Phantom Zone to get the Kryptonians.
right, yeah. So they're not gonna find anyone here, and then of course you see it flying through. Back on a mysterious planet, Graven,
Yeah, Randall.
Boom Tube's Ma'alafa'ak. He's like, look, the child lore, like definitely failed, but you have succeeded with Darkseid, and he's pleased. Here you are. Here's your own planet, a place the Shen can call their home. And Ma'alafa'ak is just like, so what is this place called? Oh, it has a name, all right. And we find out that it's Durla.
Yeah, the home planet of Chameleon Boy.
Back at the Car household, now we get the
Yeah, Rocket's explanation for what the fuck that was.
Rocket's explanation, because he's like, yeah, so I didn't make it out of there, but for some reason, I went into Metatron's vault, and he offered me a repaired time sphere. Orion's like, that doesn't sound like him. Well, he said it was for an experiment. Okay, that's definitely him. But how did you use it? And Rocket's like, I didn't. It was already pre-coordinated to the exact time that I got there. Okay, so now we know that happened. And she's like, yeah, but I'm sorry that Lor Zod, took it. And we find out that Lor starts trying to use it. And then we also see, he's like, wait a minute, what's going on? The controls are locked. We see him get teleported to the scene on Mars and the time and the place when the bomb goes off so that, Lore, where it all began. And Lore's like,
yeah, the beginning of the season.
So I get to, actually truly try to kill Superboy. And he says this while he's outside of the sphere. So he sees that Phantom Girl's over there going to do the helping thing. And Lore's like, not on my watch, turns to go into the sphere, and it's gone. He's like, oh shit. Phantom Girl saves Connor, and the bomb explodes, and Lore dies, leaving a shadow on the wall that everyone thought was Connor.
Yep. Fun little thing. The last thing we see the Eye of Ekron taking Ursa and her baby, who she's still pregnant with, to a planet, and we find out that planet is Daxam.
Yep.
We then cut back to the wedding where we
wait,
see...
No.
What? Yeah.
Because when they go to Daxam, she's like, yeah, you saved me at a cost. I swear I'm going to raise my unborn child to seek vengeance.
I said the baby. I said she mentioned she's pregnant still.
Anyway, back at the Car household, Chameleon Boy is talking to Kid Flash with Kid Flash with the Legionnaires, and he's like, we shouldn't be here. We're messing with the times. And he's like, dude, come on, relax. Everything's going to be fine. He's like, no, it's not. I mean, we don't have a time sphere anymore, so... And then on cue, a time sphere appears, and we see Brainiac 5 actually appear.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like,
the Legionnaires
are like, the Legionnaires are like, wait a minute, Brainy, how are you doing? He's like, don't worry, I'm here to take you back. Wait a minute, what about the whole timeline thing? Oh, I have a feeling that it's 99.84%, restored. I'm 99.84% sure that the timeline's restored. Chameleon Boy's like, what about the other 0.16? And Bart's like, dude, just don't. And then they leave.
Connor says he wants them to stay. Like, oh, you guys can stay for the wedding. They're like, no, we really got to get the hell out of here. We've been here way too long.
Yep, and even Phantom Girl's like, live long. He's like, why was I important? Saturn Girl's like, you'll see. And then they finally leave as a white limousine appears, and Lucas Carr is like, hey guys, it's about to start. Wedding's about to begin.
Hey, not Lucas' car. It's Snapper car as he snaps for them to begin festivities.
Yes, I know. I wanted to give him a happy moment, but no, you're right. It's Snapper car.
He literally snaps when it to start the festivities.
He snaps. He's like, all right, come on, let's go. And so, we get the wedding. We finally get a wedding. So,
all the characters from the series are present. It's a huge montage of all these characters, all the superheroes from this great series that have been there the whole time. It's really fun.
Marvin is like, wait a minute. Yeah. And then we get a gag of Marvin like, guy, wait. Wendy, Mal, what's going on? I mean, you guys never told me that they were superheroes because you thought I already knew that they were superheroes, but they were superheroes the entire. Then Wendy, Mal, and Icicle Jr. are look at him like
he shushes them.
Shut up. Yeah. And then of course, nice. On the other side, we see like Batman and some of the other people. We even see Lois Lane, and it's just like we also see Bioship and Baby appear, and Snapper, also known as Lucas, is like, the bride walks down in a beautiful dress. And, he's just like, dearly beloved, we're gathered here to, the whole spiel. And as he asks for the rings, Johnny gets to be the ring boy, the ring bearer. And, just they exchange their vows. And it was, it's a cute, touching wedding scene. And fucking Lucas, fucking Snapper, by the power vested in me by the state of Rhode Island, who literally online ordained me last night. And then he ties it up, and they finally kiss. They're finally husband and wife. End credit scene number 1. We get Wolf, Leroy, Bruce Lee, and Wingman are sleeping, while in the background you hear like the wedding things happening. Here's the bouquet, and the lucky girl is Icicle Jr.
Icicle Jr. Yay!
Okay, well, hey, it's time for to clear the floor because the newlyweds are going to have their first dance as husband and wife. Never mind. They're just gonna dance 16 feet in the air. Cool, nice. And then
also sees Trogawog steal the bouquet from Icicle Jr.
And you even hear Lucas in the background like, wait, what was that? And then all that happens. But then part 2, we see Graven on Apocalypse with Darkseid. He's like, now allow me to introduce you to 2 people. First off, we have Black Mary, who was ostracized by her family, her friends, and everyone just for having power.
One of my favorites.
And then you have someone who was alone in the Phantom Zone, who was ostracized by her family. I always forget her name.
Kara Zor-El.
Thank you. Kara Zor-El, also known as the Supergirl. These will be the next generation of Furies, set to take the fight.
Big Barda.
Yep, with Big Barda, and we see Granny Goodness is there too.
Hell yeah.
And he's like, this is the next generation of Furies, set to take the fight to the heroes who betrayed them. And Darkseid smiles, and that's where the series ends. The entire series is done.
Yep, that is everything. Before we get into any final bits, because there's a bunch of bits I want to do at the end, but I wanted to say, the Evil Supergirl arc was in Batman/Superman, the comic series, by Michael Turner, one of my favorite comic book artists, where she joins Darkseid. That's a very specific run, and also there was an animated movie on it. You may have seen the clip of Kara Zor-El trying to outrun the Omega Sanction from Darkseid, and then she kind of just flies by him, grabs him, does a sumo plex, the suplex thing on him.
When it comes to that movie, I've also seen like where Batman actually outplays Darkseid.
Yeah. Those bits are from a very specific comic arc in Batman/Superman, a comic that I actually physically own. That's probably over 20 years old at this point. But it's one of my favorite comic series because I remember I rented it from the library so often that I'm pretty sure I just took it from the library permanently. But it was fantastic. It definitely ripping up. But then the Black Mary thing is from Countdown to Final Crisis. The follow-up 252, which I know I had Ben read forever ago, back when we first did Young Justice.
Yeah, the second that's series one I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, Countdown to Final Crisis was the event after that, and then Final Crisis, where the evil fallen Black Mary, that her arc is from that, and where she does some crazy shit with her fucking hair. She like cuts her hair all off, and it's a crazy two big ponytails, and she's wearing a bunch of crazy S&M gear. She goes fully insane. But Black Mary, the evil Captain Marvel sister, is really fantastic, and of course Big Barda, I'm always a fan of.
Yeah, trust me, you've let me know about that one for a while.
Yeah. Fingers crossed someday Greg Weisman, the creator of the show, will do something with it. I know he has a shit ton of projects in the works all the time. There is the there's the DC animated movie universe, which like borrows a lot of designs from this because I think it has the same art team, but it is its own separate universe of like 20 movies that I also wanted to do at one point, but that's also, like I said, not going to do that. That's way too lengthy for us to do.
Well, I mean, we could start doing like specials that we just like any of our specials.
We've already mentioned like 15 specials we got to do.
I know, and you want to know something? And we're going to continue doing that. It's going to be 15. It's going to be 16, 17, 18, 19, and then eventually we'll get to them. Maybe, hopefully.
Okay, yeah,
probably.
So yeah, before we do the main bit about the next stuff, I wanted to cover a couple of things. This season, as we discussed when we first chose to do it, was split into 6 arcs. I'm going to list all the arcs, and then I want to go over which order you would put them in terms of what you enjoyed the most. The first 4 episodes, the first arc would be the Mars Wedding arc. The second arc would be Sisters and the League of Shadows. The third arc was the Aquaman and the Return of Orm. The fourth arc would be the Magic School Bus with Clarion. The fifth arc would be the New Gods and, Orion and the metaphor of autism and all that kind of stuff. And then the sixth would be Zod, back at it again.
Okay, so I'm going to start with I think we should start with our least favorite and work our way up. You, being the host, what is your least favorite of those 6 and why?
All right. I was going to say, unfortunately, as much as I bigged it up in this episode, Zod, back at it again at the Krispy Kreme, is going to be my least favorite arc of this whole series.
First off, thank you. Thank you for using the phrase that I pretty much kidnapped from my roommate to explain Zod, the back at it again at the Krispy Kreme. Thank you for using that phrase. Secondly, what about this particular arc that we just talked about did you not like?
I mean, it's not a matter of not liking it, that I like pretty much every single arc more than it.
That's
wasn't
fair.
the getting them out, like the getting the Kryptonians out of the Phantom Zone, Zod just being a kind of jerkish Kryptonian. It was very uninteresting, as opposed to all the stuff that was set up. And spoiler, after we do this, I wanted to do something about the whole series as a whole, but like, he wasn't a very interesting villain because he didn't have much build up. He's also pretty boring powers wise and story wise. It's pretty simple. You can break his story down real easy. The stuff with Lore was slightly more interesting, but just, getting the Kryptonians out I was not very invested in. It wasn't very interesting to me, as much as I love Kryptonians on the most part. What was your least favorite?
Wow. I can't believe this, Matt. We did it again somehow.
What?
Because giving it some thought this entire time, this arc was actually my least favorite as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, it tied everything up nicely to an extent, but
it wasn't the best thing for the series to end on, I don't think.
The build up to Zod was better than how Zod actually was. The whole, in the Phantom Zone, I get it. Connor was pretty much reprogramming himself to go back to basics from Cadmus, but he really just became as bad as he was in season 1, where he was just more of a hindrance than anything.
Yeah, he was a really annoying hindrance this whole season, which is also not great.
The only, hold on a second. The only 2 good things, I think there's a third one, but the only 2 things I liked about this arc specifically: the introduction of the new generation of Furies, aka Black Mary and Supergirl. I really liked that because you kind of built up Black Mary to me a lot, and seeing this version of it makes sense as to why I will like her, because she was literally pushed to the edge and now just got controlled by Granny Goodness to being evil. And of course, Supergirl, her first introduction, unless she was in here somehow, I can't remember, but I think this was her first introduction to Young Justice at all.
Yeah, 100%.
But the second thing, and mind you, if you were to ask me why, I couldn't answer that. Because I know nothing about this character in the comics or anything like that. But for some reason, ever since I've heard and have seen what very little I know about this character, my brain decided to latch on and was like, I like this character now. I don't know anything about him, but I like this character now. I'm really happy they gave at least some spotlight to the Emerald Empress. Like, I don't know why. Again, I can't explain it. And it's silly because usually I should be able to back up my thing, like anything I say that I like. But for some reason, this one just clicked, and I kind of want to like read more into her as a character. Then again, you always knew that my favorite kind of characters in the DC world are the magic users. Points at my boy John Constantine.
Yeah, fantastic character. I'm surprised they weren't in this movie.
Yeah, but all in all, somehow we agreed that this was the worst one.
Yeah. Also, regarding the Emerald Empress, I don't think she's Kryptonian in the Legion of Superheroes series. I believe it's just a person who has access to the Eye of Ekron. But like whenever I think about that, I always think of the bit with the Green Lantern original movie that they were going to do with the ring when it's flying around trying to find a new host. It goes by the Daily Planet, and it's just like, Kryptonian, he's pretty strong and pretty good. He's like, nah, it's not really, it wouldn't really even out too much for the power of Kryptonian. A Kryptonian with the Green Lantern ring is pretty redundant, because what the Kryptonian can do is pretty much better than a Green Lantern ring, so it's usually redundant to give them that power. But yeah, she's not really fully powered, and she's just out of the Phantom Zone, so her having the Eye of Ekron, and like I said, the original character is probably really good too. So,
well, right,
I like to see her. Like
it is unique cool that the eye, like a magical artifact, would be like this barbaric Kryptonian thing that's more barbarian than magic user. I like this one. Mine.
Yeah. Second least favorite.
Yeah,
or from the bottom up, it's gonna be the Mars Wedding, the first arc.
Really? Why is that?
Yeah, it's real slow. I get that it's just building up the finale and building up their relationship that's been going and very tumultuous for the past couple of seasons. But just Mars, the coloring and everything is not very like the red and like the constant red, the constant crazy pronunciation of Ashen, Bladen. The Garoon and all that kind of stuff. And it was just like not very fascinating, not very interesting to me. And also the crew that it was with, Connor, McGann, and Beast Boy, are not my favorite characters of the team in any incarnation. So and also the entire series was all in their mind, so it was all the echoey voice acting thing. But yeah, overall I just think it was a not very engaging plot line. The terrorist deck was pretty much settled real quick. Nobody was really hurt. The ending with Connor seemingly dying was surprising to me, but of course, that becomes the main focal point of the whole series, and it gets resolved in the way it gets resolved. But I got a plane flying overhead real loud. I would say that, that's my second least favorite arc. And what about you?
So, this is going to be surprising, actually. Don't get me wrong, in this entire series, mind you, they handle heavy topics very well, like extremely well, actually. And mind you, this arc had a fantastic moment that you and I can agree is like one of the top moments in this series. I kind of did not like my second least favorite one is actually the New Gods arc. Don't get me wrong. They absolutely handled autism extremely well, actually. Like, I was amazed that, they handled it as well as they did. And, like, it's hard to put in words, but they did a really good job with that. And, Matt.
Yeah?
Razor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a little bit higher on my list than yours.
Trust me. Razor, that is like, you and I can both agree, that was one of the coolest moments ever in the series. And I love that part. But other than that, it was okay. Let me see if I can put this in a way you can understand. It's Star Wars Episode 2: The Clone Wars to me. The vast majority of that arc was diplomacy. It was
Yeah.
mainly diplomacy, and I find that to be boring. I find it to be slow. I was happy that they actually got to have some action scenes in it, but all in all, ultimately, it was just diplomacy. And if I want diplomacy, I would play D&D, where we can make it even more interesting, because I have to deal with you being a manipulative person in D&D. Joking aside, but yeah, that's my ultimate reason why the New Gods arc was my second least favorite one.
Okay.
But now we're gonna go to the bronze medal of You Suck.
Yeah, the bronze medal of You Suck for me will be arc number 3, Aquaman and the Return of Orm. I would say that the mystery of what was going on and who the weird king was pretty interesting. I was just racking my brain like, what the fuck how the hell is Orm back? What the hell's going on? And also, how is this like ancient Vandal Savage ancestor king dude just alive now? Like, and then you find out it's happening concurrently with the Magic Bus arc. But then also, the underwater team, all three of the Aquamen, Garth and Cal and Arthur are all, I think, like medium interesting. I like Cal. He's one of my favorite characters of the original team. But I like the underwater aspect, the underwater fights, all the cool Atlantean magic and all that kind of stuff going on. Mira becoming the fucking new king of Atlantis. It was really, I liked the arc enough, but I like the other ones just more. And also, like I said, the whole time I was just thinking in my head, like, man, this is so much better than that fucking piece of shit Aquaman 2 movie. That movie sucked so bad. But this is still only the third from the bottom for me, because it was still just not as engaging as some of the other stuff was, but like tonally and just, what it was doing was like slightly more interesting to me.
So for me, my number 4 favorite one, because there's 6, right?
Yeah.
My number 3 of my on my least favorite ones is actually The Martian Wedding. Yes, they handled the whole like, Martians not liking, green Martians not liking white Martians. They said they handled the, we hate Earthers even more kind of prejudices in a very like, yeah, this actually really happens in real life kind of way as well. And I will agree with you. There were a lot of parts that were slow. But the reason why it's up here is because I feel like they built everything up at the right pace. Like Gar's guilt, just everything, we're building up to this wedding and everything like that. It had a good mystery to who was, like who like the murderer of Jem's father was, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I mean, the air quote death of Connor. That was you don't just leave it at that and have to sit on it for a while, which is what we had to do. So that's why
it was very dramatic.
That's why it was, it also was slow in certain spots and everything like that. So it's like, it's not my worst, but it's not my best. It's like the low middle kind of thing. So it's like, you know what? That's my number 3 on the bottom 3, I guess. But now, time for the top 3, starting with number 3. What was your third favorite?
Third place would be the New Gods arc. I love Jack Kirby's Fourth World. I love just anything having to do with the New Gods, the bugs, and then like also covering Rocket, what the hell she's been going through. It's very interesting to cut back to her character, because she's literally been like a pseudo background member since literally season 1. Where like the second last episode, they're like, this is like, hey, Icon, this is my, my sidekick Rocket. She wants to join the team. And she like barely has had anything to do, but she's been popping up occasionally. And you find out like all the way back since season 2, she's already had this kid with her that she's been trying to raise and deal with. And, like, she's been pretty much a background character up until this point where she's given her own arc. And it's a really cool one where we get to see Orion, the Allfather, it's so fantastic. But, like, yeah, just seeing the New God stuff, seeing Jack Kirby's world. And then, of course, when I think I had it spoiled for me before I watched it because people were freaking out about it. But, like, Razor coming back from the Green Lantern TV show, literally, I almost had tears in my eyes because I love that show so much. And having that character come back, be a Blue Lantern, and say he's still going to continue his plotline from that movie that series was so fucking, like, you know, heart-wrenching. And I was just like, oh my God, thank God they still haven't forgotten the show exists.
Right. And again, like, this was my first, I've heard through, like, the grapevine and everything like that, through random looking up, that this could happen. But my first exposure to a lantern being equal parts, you know, different aspects of the spectrum of light.
Yeah.
AKA,
this is the first mention we've seen of a red or blue lantern, I think, in this series too.
In like the series, yeah. But, like, this is my first exposure, comics or anything, of someone actually being able to wield two rings at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So that like I said, Razor's part was absolutely amazing. But
I don't mind the diplomacy of the New God stuff too, which I found enjoyable. But yeah, what is your number 3?
So my top 3 I've been mulling over this one for a while because I don't know which ones I want to put in what place, et cetera, like that. Mm-hmm. So surprisingly enough, my third place is actually the Magic School Bus.
Wow.
Don't get me wrong. No. Hold on. Before there's an upset with our listeners, too. Hear me out. All 3 of these are a very, very thin, fine margin of why I like them or not. So it's not because I think it deserves to be in the third spot. It's because I didn't want to just cop out and say I tie these ones. But the Magic School Bus one, I loved everything about it. You know, because it's magic. I like the magic aspect and everything like that. Zatanna is learning how to, you know, be a teacher with everyone. And they finally cut a deal with Naboo on how to do the helmet thing, right? And the descent into madness for Black Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like just all of this. And then there's the whole school bus thing. Oh, the school bus thing. Clarion is
what a fun multiple season build up.
I've said it once, and I said it again. Clarion is fun. And then what do you have? You have the child up here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh my goodness, can we stop with this? But, you know, it's like the child was... I didn't like the child very much. I'm going to be honest with you.
I don't think most people didn't.
Yeah. Because Clarion is the fun kind of chaos, where the child was like forced chaos, not going to lie.
Yeah,
like you have all of that build up and everything like that, and then finally it all pays off. Because I sorry, my brain went to like other places, but yeah, and like, you know, the payoff of, you know, just Clarion actually helping out. And come on, it's Clarion. I don't want that cat. I want a new cat. Gets a cat that looks exactly like his old cat, like that cat.
Yeah, which I don't know if it's. I was curious if that was supposed to be like that is Teakle from like a weird time loop thing, and Clarion's just being goofy. I couldn't tell.
It is always hard to tell what Clarion knows and doesn't know, but that's what I like about him. That's why Clarion is one of my favorite characters, is because you don't know what he knows, and that boggles your mind. But yeah, all in all, that would be my third place one. And the only reason why it's in third place is because two of my other two, like my number 2 and my number 1, did something that just slightly beat the other, like each other kind of thing. But now, number 2, Matt, what is your number 2?
Okay, my number 2 is the Magic School Bus with Clarion. Clarion's absolutely fantastic, but and of course, like I said, I was never a fan of the child, but of course, in my mind, I was just thinking of her in the Sandman comic, where like or the Sandman book, Sandman show, where like Dream just fucking she like tries to scare him, tries to get the key to hell from him, and he literally just pretty much does a clone of like smacking her on the head with a rolled up newspaper saying cut that out, like you get out of my room, and she like leaves sad and disappointed and defeated because Dream's just that much.
Yeah, I think you told me about that when we were talking about that arc.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Literally, he's just the equivalent of rolled up newspaper, smack, no, and that's it.
Yeah. And she's like, "Oh wow, leave me alone. You're mean."
I mean, what do you expect from one of the Lords of Chaos trying to deal with one of the what do they call it, the unending?
Yeah, the unending. Or
yeah. What do you expect from a Lord of Chaos dealing with a primordial being that was there before Order and Chaos were there?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And also probably being Dream like more of a powerful being aspect of chaos than any of the Lords could possibly imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
His shit's insane. But yeah, the child was the only thing I brought it down. But yeah, everything to do with the magic team, like all those Tracy's 13, Mary Marvel, Zatanna being their teacher, even the other dude, the nephew of Kent Nelson.
Something like that.
Yeah, they were all those characters were all incredibly fun, and I would have loved to have more time with them than just the 4 episodes. But then just all they're going through the personal trials, and then of course we cannot forget this arc was backgrounded and like bracketed by the incredible Vandal Savage backstory. The absolutely
yes, the Vandal Savage like talking to the Lords of Order and Chaos kind of thing. I forgot to mention
but also
that
the
as
origins.
Well. I forgot to mention that in that, but yeah, oh my goodness, his origin and everything like that was fantastic.
Besides his origin, the origin of the Homo Magi, the Homo Meta, and the
Wait
Homo
a minute,
Romanus.
hold on a second. I think I'm mixing up my things. I thought that was
this arc was about that.
Wait, oh well.
Yeah.
Huh.
You may have to reorganize your list.
I am gonna have to reorganize because my number one, there was a vast reason for that. We're gonna backtrack a little bit, and no, we're not editing any of this. We're gonna backtrack a little bit.
Of course not. I only edit when I want it to be sneaky. But no. The background of Vandal Savage was absolutely mind-blowingly incredible. And like a lot of people say that like this was the whole reason Greg Weisman did this whole universe, so he could like originize like the entirety of the DCU back to Vandal Savage's like planting and like the history of Atlantis, the history of his meta people. It was just really fucking fantastic and incredible. On top of a really cool group of magic students, a really cool Clarion fight with his dumb replacement, the child. It was just like this arc was fucking fantastic. That's why it's my number 2.
Okay, so
while you're reorganizing your stuff, I'll let you go and see.
No. Hold on. I this is literally what's gonna happen. Okay. So everything I just said about my third favorite, we're gonna nix that. Okay, and instead we're gonna move my entire list from my second least favorite one. We're gonna shift that all up. And I'm gonna put the underwater Atlantean one at number 5. I legitimately thought I legitimately thought that the Atlantean one had the history. I was misremembering everything. So yeah, just gonna shit that. But yeah, it was one of the weaker ones as well, especially the haha fuck you Orm that's not Orm. What, you thought this was going to? So now that we have that in mind, my number 1 is, well, I'm gonna already reveal what that was because I
not number 1.
No, hold on. I know. Just
okay,
chill with me for a second. Brain going in a frazzle right now. But yeah, briefly, number 5, the Atlantis one. Remember that whole thing I said about like diplomacy and politics and stuff like that? Main reason why it's that one, as well as the whole like, oh my god, he's actually the king, but not actually the king. Ha 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 ha! Fuck you. Was a haha funny thing, but it didn't save the entire arc. So anyway, back to my number 2, to my number 2 slot because anyway, my second favorite one is actually The Tale of Two Sisters, and I liked every aspect of it. because they told that story really well. And Orphan, oh, her like origin story and everything like that.
Hell yeah.
They did, and I've grown as I've watched these series, these seasons and series. I have grown to actually enjoy Artemis's backstory and her like family life and everything like that. Hers and Cheshire's. At first I didn't think much of that character and anything like that, but I've actually grown to appreciate their story a lot more. And honestly, especially coupled with the orphan thing with I think it was Barbara before she became Oracle, like backing up Orphan and everything, and that plot twist where Vandal Savage's like daughter was actually the evil one this entire time, which some people could have seen it coming because it's Vandal Savage's daughter. But like they did everything superbly well. Sorry, I was about to use a wrong word. Superbly well. And again, the only reason why that one is number 2 is because number 1, which I'm going to reinstate. But what about you? What's your number 1, even though we know what it is?
Yeah, it has to be by a process of elimination. My number 1 is The Sisters and the League of Shadows. As always, Cassandra Savage, Onyx, Tigress, Cheshire, all of them, Cassidy freaking Kane, they were all absolutely fucking fantastic. I've always been a huge fan of the League of Shadows, Ra's al Ghul. I love that, like, just all these cool ass, dope ass fucking ninja women just working together. Black Spiders back again. Fucking Rictus. It was just like top tier Young Justice to me. All these, I think Artemis might be my favorite character on the team almost.
On the OG team,
and just having. And of course, I mean, literally, with all these characters just named, and of course, number 1 with a bullet, freaking Sportsmaster. It's the only arc with Sportsmaster in it as well. This is my number 1 because, but no, Artemis's bit was fucking fantastic. A character that's been entirely irrelevant until Young Justice, the animated series, made that character important. And now she's been back in comics for decades now, almost. She's, the whole bit with figuring out the mystery, which one is the real one, which one is a traitor, and which one isn't, was literally had me on the edge of my seat because I was hoping that they were both, like, watching the series for the first time, the second arc in the show, I was like, oh my god, I love these characters. Onyx fucking rules. Cassandra Savage, if she's actually Scandal, I'm gonna scream like a little girl. Batgirl finally getting her, Orphan finally getting her, scene. It's just her backstory, everything, just the infiltrating the island. It was so goddamn good and so captivating, and this was like peak Young Justice to me, and this is like the best of the series. I'm probably like my favorite arc or storyline in probably almost the entire series. It was so fucking fun, and I loved every single character involved in it. I probably would watch it again on my own time just because I could, because from anything from this whole series, I'll probably watch that arc again because it's so goddamn enjoyable. Absolutely fantastic, my favorite.
So, originally, I was going to say that number 1 was the Atlantis. Because for some reason, I thought that the Atlantis episode had the backstory of Vandal Savage as well as, like, the lore with all the metahumans and everything like that. But because I'm a fucking dumbass and misremembered everything, that episode's down to 5. And my number 1 episode is going to be the Magic School Bus because everything I said before, I like all of that. But the reason why, ultimately, that now the Magic School Bus, but then at the time it was going to be the Atlantis one, I adore all of that lore. I'm one of those people that cannot really listen to like informational things because it's like, just whatever. It's just another lecture kind of thing. But the way that it's literally Vandal Savage telling his own story and like how he did everything and even saved the world kind of thing, and even the stranger helping him out to get to have an audience with the Lords of Chaos and Order.
Yeah.
A solidified Vandal Savage as one of my favorite villains of all time because he's able to do shit like this, and he can be, you know, twirl his mustache evil kind of thing, but he also can actually quote unquote side with the good guys for the greater good of things. Like one episode in particular of the original Justice League was when you know, Superman died, air quote, but he actually got sent to the future. And the only person who was alive aside from Superman was Vandal Savage because
Yeah.
he actually succeeded in his plan and is reaping the consequences. And what does he want Superman to do when he gets back to his own time? He wants him to stop him so he doesn't have this happen. Sure, that means that Vandal Savage is probably not going to be there in that future, but he still like kind of was like, okay, look, I get it. I did some bad things and I'm an immortal. So I mean, I'm going to do that every now and then. But like, please stop me. Literally. But in this series, he was like, oh, I'm part of the light and big bad evil guy. But in this, you see he's more complex. He's more in depth than I could have ever imagined. And with the entire history of metahumans and how they were born and the birth of Atlantis and everything like that, I adored all of that. And the fact that Vandal Savage, the only thing he's got going for him is that he's immortal, which also helped him hone all of those other skills that he has.
Yeah.
He was able to go to 2 cosmic forces and convince them that Clarion is better than the child. Baffles my mind. Like, he was able to just go up to them and be like, yeah, please, enough with the child. Put Clarion back in power. And they looked at each other and they're just like, you know what? You're right. Bye, child, pretty much. Yeah. But yeah, just the way they did everything in this arc was actually positive. The lore bit specifically. And yes, now that Matt like showed me the error of my ways, yes, I like everything else that I said about it, with like Clarion being fun and everything like that. But for me, honestly, the best part about that episode, now that I have the right episode, is the lore. And holy shit, wow, like they did it perfectly in this show. So yeah, that's my number one, my real number one this time.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, the arcs, it was a very interesting way for doing the show. I thought, yeah, some of them hit, some of them didn't, but it was a very interesting last season of the show. Speaking of seasons of the show, the other thing I wanted to talk about before going into, ending of the episode and wrapping up this series for now, the seasons. Each season had an overarching villain or overarching storyline that was, contributing to what was going on the entire time. And then I wanted to discuss ranking wise what you would rank the different seasons and different overarching bad guy plots and everything that was happening in each of them.
Okay, so hold on a second. If I remember correctly,
I'll go over them now.
Okay.
Yeah, season 1, the main plot line was the Light, a group of villains who were investigating mind control as a method of controlling the Justice League. They hid who they were behind people like the Injustice League as like a fake thing, and then you find out who the real leader is, obviously, and all the members of it. Over time, the main villains that they fight are actually all members of this group called the Light. The second season was about the Reach, which was Blue Beetle's people pretending to be benevolent, but they were actually working with the Light and Darkseid to introduce metahumans because they were trying to colonize Earth and send out, take over the planet by this, like, the Reach drink and pretend to be benevolent aliens advancing the society. The third arc would be explicitly the Vandal Savage and Darkseid versus the Justice League and versus them. This is when their plans became more overt. The selling and trafficking of metahumans and like a little bit of space stuff started happening in the third season. But mostly it was about Vandal Savage and Darkseid just breeding tons of metahumans. And then the fourth, which we just got finished with, the main villain would be Zod and the evil Kryptonians. Lore Zod, technically, I guess. So it's, the Zods, just all the evil Kryptonians and the Zods. Now, I would say that we should just, we can, instead of going like, bit by bit, we can just go by which we liked and which we didn't, and how we would rank the seasons, and like, just as a whole. I'll give you time, because I had time to think about this because I've already.
I'm already ready.
All right. Well, I went first last time, so I'll let you go. Like I said, just the whole from the top.
Just everything, just everything at once. Yeah. So, and I'll try to like not go so heavy on the details, but like, number 4, since there's 4 seasons, I didn't like The Reach because not only did it remind me too much about like the season finale, the series finale of regular Justice League with the whole Themyscirian army trying to take over, trying to be peaceful, but they actually were just going to try to take over kind of thing. But it was like that, only, I mean, it was more elaborate, so I'll say that the Themyscirian invasion was worse. But honestly, the Reach are just alien vampires. Because the one thing that really killed it for me was they're not allowed to invade unless they're willingly accepted by whoever they're coming to visit. I'm like, that's dumb. I mean, if they knew you were gonna, that they wouldn't. That's dumb. I don't like that. Like, just if you're gonna invade, just invade. Number three, was Zod. The buildup was all right. The name drop was all right. Finding out they were in the Phantom Zone was all right, and then the payoff was not that great. Zod is kind of a weak, in this at least. He was a lot weaker than I imagined. So the second one is the Light. Air of Mystery. They did the Air of Mystery perfectly. Finding out like everything, especially the big reveal of Roy being the clone, being the mole.
Yeah.
That was a good twist and everything like that. But then my number 1, literally because I kind of gushed on my favorite arc, is Vandal Savage and Darkseid versus the League. Because, I mean, it's Darkseid first off. Darkseid, even though he's a one-note villain in most... It was mostly
Granny Goodness that season.
In most circles, he's like a one-note villain kind of thing. I mean, he's literally DC's version of Thanos, if anything, if I'm going to compare. But Darkseid has a little bit more uniqueness to him. Like, he's got more of a cunning mind. And the fact that he actually, like, joined forces with Vandal Savage, another mind that is actually a force to be reckoned with, who's more on the side of humans than anything, ultimately, but at the same time, they both had a common goal. They did that season very well, and I mean, a lot of the subject matter was very heavy as well. So like, and like always, they treated it well. So yeah, going from worst to best, the Reach, Zod, the Light, Vandal Savage, and Darkseid versus the League. That's my that's my order.
All right. I will say that my order, ironically, is the exact opposite order of the seasons. My bottom, of course, lamest villain would be Zod. Lore's motives and how he was doing what he was doing was very confusing. Lore was kind of a dickhead, but also he was like, relegated to just the bubble and just talking to Ma'ala Fa'ak for the entire season.
Yeah.
Zod was just manipulating silly ass Connor, who doesn't have his memory and like has Phantom Zone sickness and thought that he killed Clark because of a dream. Like they were both too separate from the entire group that they were supposed to be antagonistic to for too long. Very underutilized for being evil Kryptonians, which is a personal slight to me. So
fair.
I thought that they were very, very boring. Unfortunately, as much as you just guessed about it, the third place would be Vandal and Darkseid. I do love them as characters, but I feel like their plan was very redundant from the first two seasons. Just, breeding and spreading metahumans. It's just the light again, but it's just like, mainly just these two, but most of their subordinates from the previous arcs. The new metahumans, the like real deep cut superheroes and supervillains that they were, sending out and stuff was very interesting. I love Hot Lava. I love this new incarnation. Violet and Forager are fantastic additions to the team during those seasons. But I just thought that they weren't a very, breath of fresh air in any way because they literally have been the antagonists for the last couple of seasons, technically. Second from the top would be the Reach. I really enjoyed them. Their aesthetic is fun. Black Beetle was an incredibly fun villain for the Young Justice team to have to face off against. Them figuring out the plan of the invasions was like I said, I love the aesthetic of the Reach. Scientist was either who's named Ambassador, the one just named Scientist. They were just very, very fun. But also personally, as I mentioned earlier, Warhammer aesthetically and what they were doing was incredibly similar to the Warhammer Army, the Tau, who I think may be like what they were designed off of or something, because they look incredibly similar, and their method of like slow invasion by being nice and benevolent is very, very similar to them.
Interesting.
So I really enjoyed them because they reminded me of the Tau, and I like their aesthetic. And that plot line of introduced the new team during that arc was very fun, and then all the characters introduced. But of course, they were again backed by the Light,
right?
Who is my number one favorite because when we started the series in the beginning, I mentioned a ton about what a huge DC mark I am, what a huge fan of DC Comics I am.
Right.
And the original villains were the Light, and it's revealed that they are a group of like mastermind intelligence and manipulative supervillains that remember each of the members of the League have fought in the past, or just are overarching recurring villains like the Ultra Humanite, like original Vandal Savage, Clarion, Queen Bee. All of them were, and then of course they used the fake Injustice League as their cover or whatever, but for all these smart people, those are just like the bruisers pretty much, even though they, jobbed Black Adam and Sinestro, which is, vile to me, but still, the Light was so interesting because it was a group of smart supervillains, and their main scheme was mind control. The story was they were using magic, they were using technology, they were using bio stuff to try to figure out the perfect mind control, and Starro bits to perfectly control the League, and they succeeded. The only reason they were defeated was because the Young Justice team, which was their covert Black Ops team of kids, managed to trick them or defeat them in that way. But I think the Light is at its core what comics should be, which is a group of known long historied supervillains working together, and it's a big mystery of who's on the team and who's who, and when it's revealed, it's very, very enjoyable. And that's why that's why later when the Reach is revealed to still be working with the Light, and then season 3 is it's Darkseid and Vandal Savage from the Light again. They didn't hit for me as much as they did the first time when it was first revealed that they were behind everything and they were having a long-term scheme. So, as a DC fan, like I said, a group of really cool, diverse villains is just always going to be my favorite. And that reveal, the mystery of who they were and who's on the team was just that's why the first season villain group would be my number one favorite.
Good.
But season wise, probably 3, since it introduced me to a lot of new characters on the superhero goods guy team.
Okay, that's very nice. Yeah, so that's good. A
Young
little bit
Justice,
of diversified and everything like that. But ultimately though, I can say quite clearly that Young Justice, whether you know anything about DC or not, because Matt knows DC like the back of his hand. Matt could literally tell you everything about DC Comics in his sleep. Me, I'm not as knowledgeable, but we both can agree that. But we can both agree that Young Justice, season 1, 2, 3, and 4, all seasons, absolutely worth the watch. Definitely, you should pick it up if you haven't. If this is your first episode of listening to us, really now, come on, we've been over this.
Yeah, it's weird
You're
choice.
Better than this.
I guess because the episode's 3 hours long at this point.
But
makes sense.
But at the same time, if you don't know anything about DC, this is a good watch. If you know a lot about DC, this is a good watch. So,
yeah, big
Matt.
recommend. Yeah.
Okay, you've been dangling this carrot in front of our listeners and in front of me this entire time. Finally, reveal to me, what are we doing next?
Well, I don't know if we normally do it this way, but of course, we have to do the boring plugs to keep the listeners listening.
Oh shit! Yeah. No. We're gonna stick with the format. I don't have any plugs. Matt, list them all off for you.
Of course, the RSS feed for RSS/Action Tunes, I believe it is, or Action Bros. I probably shouldn't not know what the hell our goddamn RSS feed link.
Way to go! First plug, and you're already messing it up. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right. I shouldn't be fucking that up. The RSS feed is back for the podcast. It's only not too all the way far back, but it is media.rss.com/actiontune. Check that out. It's available on Apple Toon podcasts, Spotify, hopefully soon. Of course, we got to go back to the YouTube channel, Matthew Lewis Podcasts. Matthew Lewis Podcasts over on Blue Sky. Follow us there. What are they called? Skeets now? I skeet about all kinds of shows and movies I'm watching over on that. And then, of course, you got to follow the Patreon, Matthew Lewis Podcasts, on what's it called? What the fuck is it called? Twitch as well. I don't stream too much, but when I do, it's fun. I'll be doing some Mortal Kombat stuff. I'll probably do some more DC games in the future if any good ones release. And then, of course, listen to old episodes of Action Toon Bros. We could use the viewer count. Movie Garbage, I do with Ed, friend of the podcast. Tons of episodes that, of course, Awesome Ass, Ben, and Chris both guest on, including the long-ass Monster Hunter one that just aired. The other podcasts I do, of course, Forgotten Minotaur King, other podcasts down the pipeline. But other than that, that should be all my plugs for now.
Don't forget about the book that you wrote.
Oh, yeah. Buy my fucking book. Review it on Amazon. Forgotten Minotaur King based on the audiobook, or the audio podcast.
By the way, who did the cover art for that?
Our wonderful friend, Tara Nestor. Friend of the podcast. She was with... She and her partner. No, I'm saying no. She wife. And her partner. Are they married?
Yeah. They got married like in December.
Oh yeah. All right, so yeah, her and her wife starred on our She-Ra episodes that we covered the entire season of, which was very fun. She did the cover art for my book. Great shout out to a great friend. We got one of our random event episodes. We got to try to do at their place or something like that. Even though they're incredibly far from both of us.
Yeah, they are a little bit far from us as well. But fortunately, we'll make time. I look at you directly. Yeah. We will make time.
We have to do another special with them. We have to do a special with the group again, like our fucking most listened to episode, fucking Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh my god!
For some reason.
Now, Matt,
so yeah, that's my pluggies.
Now, Matt.
Yeah.
I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. You've dangled the carrot in front of our listeners, and you've dangled it in front of me. You've built it up so much. So, Matt, tell us, since it is now the end of the series, what are we watching next?
All right. If you listened to the Digimon episode of Movie Garbage, where we covered the Digimon movie, I mentioned a couple of shows from way back in the day, almost over 23 years ago. There was a number of shows back on the Disney One Saturday Morning show that I absolutely loved. A huge block of shows. Have you watched those shows back in the day?
What, the One Saturday Morning stuff, like Recess and all those?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know the shows you're talking about. I grew up with those.
Of course. Hell yeah. We are going to do a very old Disney show from 2002.
Oh.
I hope you are a fan of police procedurals, Ben, because we are watching one of my all-time favorite shows that I did double-check to make sure it still holds up, and it is absolutely incredible still. We are going to cover the 2002 Disney TV show Fillmore.
Fillmore.
Now, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was one of a large number of shows on that station. Yeah?
Congratulations. I don't.
Hell yeah. It is the opposite of Metalocalypse, I would say. Because it is, they play what's going on very seriously, but it is a very, very fun show. And you may think, like, that's not very actiony. There are multiple police chases per episode in that show, and every episode is a very, very fun mystery that is incredibly relevant to all types of very fun, like, different activities and stuff like that. But it is a very awesome, like, satire of police procedurals. Very subtle humor, very amazing voice acting. It's not available on Disney Plus. I think unless you have like a VPN for like Euro Disney or England or something like that for some fucking reason, which sucks. There are other ways to watch it. I do believe it might be on YouTube, but the best way is probably going to be, old WCO if you can. It's only 20 episodes, so we're going to be covering this one real quick. It's going to be a pretty short coverage for us. But yes, it is a very fun, very amusing, very high concept fucking show from 2 decades ago. And I'm glad I picked something you couldn't predict. But we'll do something more traditional possibly after we cover this show.
That's all you on that one. But still, either way, yeah, like, color me impressed, because every single time I think I know what you're going to do. You've always, like, 180'd and said, no, we're doing this. So, I
like to keep people on their feet.
Yeah, you do. And you did a good job. So, anyway, which hopefully I can do the same thing with you, because I've already decided after Metalocalypse what we're doing.
Oh, I'm pumped to be surprised, but it's going to be a while because
we've got a long way to go, unfortunately. But anyway, so
Young Justice, we're sending you off to the sea. You were a great series, one of our firsts, and you ended on a pretty good note.
And you will come back to us one day. We are expecting you to come back from sea.
Yeah, I'll make sure to tag Greg Wiseman in this episode so he can fucking pick up the series again. He has too many DC projects in the works, though.
He really does, yeah. But anyway, anything else you need to add?
No, we can wrap it up there. Catch you guys in the future for our new series, Fillmore.
Absolutely, and of course, coming up later on is more Metalocalypse, which, this one's going to be a trek, but hopefully the one after that is going to be a bit of fresh air. So, from us here at Action Toon Brothers to you, as we always say at the end of every episode, as always, keep it sleazy.